Hello and welcome to Cosmic Divide, episode number 52, I believe. I am joined today by Shio Wager, and of course, today we're going to talk mostly about Masters Toronto and what the hell just happened. Shio, you want to give any early words for a preview of what's about to come?
Ale, ale, ale. Ale, ale, ale. That happened. Disrespect to the community from a region that usually is respected by the community happened. We'll get into MIBR. Like the top four was not first seeded halfway through. It was like dream runs happening. There was like 3 different narratives everyone loved, and like one of the ones no one expected was in the finals. Dude, I feel like Toronto, because it's all the teams that didn't make it, made it so interesting for everyone to find new teams to support and for teams like Wolves to just rise all the way to the top. We'll start talking about it, but this tournament was like maximum cinema, like a script we've never seen before.
That's interesting because I think a lot of people were asking me. I think generally most people think that this is up there in terms of Masters tournaments. I think most people would probably put it up there. I mean, obviously you were there a lot, so it's going to be pretty unique, I suppose, for you as well. But yeah, if you could try and take away maybe some of that, home team bias away, where would you rank this versus, some of the other tournaments that you've seen for Valorant?
It's like how to explain. I still think the finals for Bangkok were better. Mm-hmm. I feel like some of the matches that we watched in general, just in scope and skill specifically, were much better in Bangkok. I feel like there was so much sloppy going on inside Toronto, which was crazy, especially from like some of the teams you would think would be the first seeds. I would rank this akin to like some of the lock-in tournaments maybe from like years prior, like in terms of it's a little bit more chaosy, a little bit more entertaining. Yeah. And put this at like maybe like a 6 or a 7 overall tournament. Story-wise though, man, like 8, 9, almost 10 for some of these teams, like and prolonging from stage 1 to a tournament. Like the link in story is sick. Like that's what I'll agree with.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. The Bangkok finals, and I talked about this with my chat as well during the final. Like, what is the best game? The Bangkok finals is the best game, and people came back to me and said the lock-in Fnatic Loud finals better, and I think they're just so wrong. That last map was crazy, yes, but all of the last 3 maps in Bangkok were decided by 2 rounds. 2 of them went to deep OT. The last round went to deep OT on Pearl. It was like the massive favorites against the massive underdog. Like that will take some real beating. Weirdly enough, though, and obviously we'll get to this. We're going to go in reverse order, but I will just kind of spoil. Paper X won the event. If you don't know,
if you didn't know, if you were just waking up today,
I would say if we would have gone to map 5, it would have. There would have been a good potential that would be the best game of all time. The reason I say that is every map was close. Fnatic weren't that good at Sunset of Pearl, but they made it close by winning both pistols. But every map was close. The last map of Split would have been arguably the best map in the pool for both teams. It's split map 5. It would have gone to deep OT because it's split map 5. It would have been that. Had we gone to a map 5, I think that would have been probably the best tournament. Or best game we've ever seen. But yeah, I would rate Masters Toronto. I wouldn't put it number 1, but I would probably say that this is in the top 3 or 4, I think, events for Valorant so far. It was definitely
okay, nice. Yeah,
definitely a good one. But let's actually come back. We'll come back to Toronto in a second because there are some more things to talk about. I assume you watched the show match as well. On Corrode.
I didn't watch the show match, but I saw a few clips from it here and there. I did watch your breakdown of Corode.
Oh, okay.
And we had like a hour-and-a-half breakdown of Corode after that, like just me talking to chat and looking at like the map and stuff. So yeah, that's what.
So you have seen the map then? That's basically what I'm
extensively. Yes, yes.
Okay. Well then, give me your early thoughts on Corode. What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Anubis Counter-Strike, or not Anubis, ancient from Counter-Strike type vibes, like lots of map control needed, lots of pivoting that's possible. I love the design of this map. I loved everything about looking at the mini map until I saw half these walls are made of clay and paper. And it's like, wow, the approach to things seems so cool. It's like Valorant almost has it where they're letting you have some type of interesting fighting for main space and hitting the site and not being able to play main. And then you can Odin spam through everything, which is fucking ridiculous. But like generally, I like the play out of this map. I like the wide mains and like the potential of canceling things from left to right, long rotates for the team, and mid looks really interesting. It's not like the most defaulty type of ascent mid. It's not like split mid as well, where like you can barely fight for it from the defender side. It looks to be a very interesting map with like a very breeze types of room to fights on sites, and then like ascent and bind levels of fighting for main space. So it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think this will be a good map. I think this will be a map that people like, mainly because it's quite standard. There isn't too much like, there is no gimmick for a start. Some people like the gimmicks sometimes they don't, right? But it's something that can, I think, ruin a map. But they seem to have. Well, I basically think they probably just ran out of ideas that they liked, essentially, for gimmicks on maps. They probably just thought, like, we can't keep making a map with a different gimmick every time because we're going to end up, we're going to end up with, in space, like, floating around. Like, it's going to end up crazy.
Fast and Furious level scalings. I feel like this train thing, there was something on this map with this train that they took out.
Yes, maybe, yeah. Like a quick rotate, hop on a train type beat.
Yeah, skate on those tracks. Like, I don't even know what it is, but something.
Yeah. But I do think it will be a good map. I think it's quite an interesting map in terms of it's like I particularly like the A site because it feels very different, right? It feels like you've got the sunset A elbow, but then also the first part of mid goes to A as well. And A main seems quite easier to get to, so it feels like there'll be a heavy focus on A, which actually I kind of like. I kind of like a almost imbalanced map, right? A map that says like, this should be like, this is the more important side to kind of fight over, because then that creates kind of interesting dynamics of what you then decide to prioritize in certain rounds, and gambling essentially every so often with what's going to go on. But yeah, I think Road will be a good map. I am worried about the Odin thing like you, but I think it's better to have like spammable walls. That's much easier to change than like if the map was shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can just put you can just literally change the walls if it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Like they did with Ascent. Yeah.
I think they're just gonna probably people are gonna like playing the map because of like the gimmicky walls and stuff, and then it gets patched or something. I'm not sure if you talked about like Asian composition on the map, but to me, like Omen, Viper, Yoru, Sova seems like a standard 4 to rock with, and then you have a flex pick. I've seen Grim doing some crazy things on Sage.
Well, yeah.
Some of the creator stuff. Like there's so many boost spots, KO if you want to go like a sense route of how to play the map. Like, but those 4 agents seem pretty standard for the map from what I see.
That's interesting you say that, because I recorded a video earlier today breaking down what I think the meta will be on the map. And I said Omen, Yoru, Viper. I said Fade instead of Sova. Although I did say that Sova was also very good. So I'm not against you. I said I might slightly prefer Fade, but Sova is also fine. And then, like you say, I think the 5th is very open. I think it's kind of up to you, because I do think it's a map that you could get away with playing no Sentinel. Like Split kind of. I think it's one of those maps that is a map where if you want to play a Sentinel, that's fine. Like it'll probably be pretty good, like it is on Split. Like if you want to play Cypher or Vice on Split, yeah, they're pretty good. But if you don't, that's also fine. Like you can get away with it, and you can still play a pretty good map. So I think that'll be pretty interesting. Speaking of agents, though, let's dive into Masters Toronto. Let's actually start with this, because of course, coming into Toronto, we had a new meta, right? Teo was gone, and new things were coming about. We didn't exactly know what we were going to suspect. So I've just got here for you, Shayo. Here is the agent pick rates in terms of some of the top agents. So talk me through some of this. You've got Omen at 82%. This, I think, is the second highest pick rate of any agent at any tournament. I think only Jet beat it in 2021. But yes, 82%. So that's higher than any peak Chamber, any peak Viper. I mean, almost anything, right? Apart from when Jet was just so mega OP that, it was obvious. But apart from that, Omen at 82%. Is that a problem? Let's start there.
I feel like it's because of the map pool more than anything else. If Fracture was here, that percentage would have been dropped by maybe even 20, right? Like Brimstone would have been picked a little bit more and taken up a little bit of the pool. But what do we bring back? We brought back Sunset, which is an Omen map already. When it comes to smokes, you can't even flex. Like, I guess you can flex Astra on it a little bit, but like everyone just rocks Omen because the para is so good. For market, it's funny, it says 1 corrode map and it's in the stats as well for the thing. It's jokes. But I feel like even like there was a big icebox meta shift as well, to where you started to see double controller pop up for a lot of the region. And I feel like people default to Omen as a part of their team comps for standard Valorant. And I feel like a lot of standard Valorant that wasn't as creative was being played just because we were on like a Tejo's disappearing patch as well, right? If you look at the previous meta, double duelist, Omen was just one of the best things to initiate with the paranoia for Neon and ISO as well. So it's like, if you go back in your strat book, Omen's there. If you go forward in your strat book and you're being creative, we're being creative at a double controller. If initiators get nerfed, controllers are really fucking good because I think initiators keep them in bay, right? So if Teo's gone, then it's a better idea to play strong controllers. And if it's double, it's always Viper Omen. So unless you have a map like Fracture or Bind in the pool where Brim takes up some of that space, they're both not here. It's Abyss is not here, so no Astra. Breeze is not here, so you know it's an Omen pick. And I feel just because like it's the map pool, I don't think the agent's broken, just the map pool. Omen's in the business. He's getting buffed as well next patch. I'm not sure if you saw.
Yeah,
I don't know why we need that. It helps like bad players, I guess, but it's crazy, man. Like it's wild.
Yeah. I agree, and the well, I agree with some of it. I disagree on some of it as well. I agree that like the thing is like whatever the best controller is almost always going to be at least 50%, right? Whatever people decide is the best controller, that's going to be because you have to play a controller, right? It's not like the other roles where, you know, we have seen teams play, you know, no duelist, no sentinel, no initiator even sometimes, you know, and then even the initiators, you could really split them into two different categories as well between recon and kind of, you know, the others. So you're always going to get, you know, and here you go, right? Like you're always going to have pretty much a recon initiator, right? Like Silver and Fade here together, you know, 93%, right? Like, so there's just certain type of agents you're always going to have. So that's one thing going in Omen's favor. And you're right, the map pool is very Omen heavy, as you mentioned. Like Icebox was one of the maps that Omen didn't used to get picked on, but now I think people have realized like, hey, whether it's with a duelist like Paper X or whether it's without a duelist like some of the EMEA teams were running, you know, Omen is just actually pretty good on that map, right? Guess what?
Yeah.
You know, like all of the things that make Jet good on the map, well, imagine if you just had an agent that could do pretty much all of those things, but better and with a paranoia. Huh. That sounds pretty good, huh? And also Pearl didn't get picked. You know, Pearl only got picked 3 times.
True.
There was a lot of banning of Pearl, which is the map you can see here that Omen is 0% on, so it does make sense why Omen's pick rate would be so high. The part that I disagree with you, though, is I do think Omen needs enough. I do think Omen is at the level that he is a problem. And I think the reason that is because the paranoia is just too good. It is just too good. As an ability at the pro level, you can't have, like, if every other flash can be shot or turned, why does Omen have a flash that can't be?
Yeah.
Like, why? It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make, like, design sense. It's like they just forgot, like, oh, no, we've given this guy, like, an ability that doesn't make sense with the rest of the game. And it goes fast enough that it can smack you. And I've said this before on stream, like, you will often see a paranoia traded for an ult. You can trade a breach ult for a well-timed paranoia, or a fade ult for a well-timed paranoia. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
There's kind of no other ability that often does that.
It's the most disgusting ability in the game. I think it's one of the reasons. I think the game might be balanced around paranoia even. Like, the cost of paranoia is the same as a Sage Wall. Like, it's the push-pull of the game, I think, is in tandem with how paranoia is. I feel like Sentinels are the way they are in terms of use cases, and angles are the way they are because paranoia exists. I mean, I'm a big paranoia tinfoil hat person, to where, like, if you take this ability out of the game, the maps will be different, like the agents will be different, and people may be able to be having better kits across the board. But I agree with you. I don't know why this flash exists.
I want to say that, but a lot of people say, like, oh, Omen's fine, you just need to buff the other controllers, which is true for some of the controllers, right? Like, that obviously Harbor needs a buff. No one's disagreeing with you. The problem that I think people have is, if you keep Omen the same and just buff all of the other controllers, which, like, every map is double controller meta. Every single map. There isn't a single map where a double controller then wouldn't be the obvious best solution, in my opinion.
Here's my thing, right? This guy has the best of both worlds. I don't mind him having this ultimate level ability because his ultimate doesn't do as much when it comes to impact, right?
True.
But why does he get to have paranoia and also be able to have like 6 smokes basically in a round? I don't know what the official thing is, but He gets to have a smoke influence 24/7 at no cost. Astra's cool. Her kit in terms of utility is insane. The level of control you can have, but you lose smokes in using it. Like
Yeah.
you can
There's
feel
only
the
so
first time
much
you
you
play
can
Astra.
do.
Yeah, you feel like you're in a Gundam. You feel so cool, and then like 10 seconds pass by, you have no stars left. You're like, oh crap! I pulled, I stunned, I smoked twice. I have 1 star remaining. Like there's a skill check there, right? You could bait out 2 omen smokes. If you get forced to default for like 20, 30 more seconds, he has a 3rd one and a 4th is coming for retake. Like that's a problem. If you want to nerf this agent, you definitely can. I think the para stays because Brim's Molly is also kind of insane, man. Like lined up from anywhere, post plant, it's so annoying. It can stop a push as well. Not the same level of paranoia, but he only has 3 smokes. If Brim had 5 or 6 smokes, I guarantee you he played just as much as Omen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
Give this guy 3 smokes maps, 3 smokes max in a map. I'm telling you.
In a map? In a whole map? You play a whole map with 3 smokes. Holy, better use them well. You better be using them effectively. Important. Hey guys, this is a crucial gun round, okay? I'm gonna use 1 smoke. But let's talk about the others as well, because I think there are some things here that I think are quite interesting, right? Like I would have expected Yoru to still be higher than like Raze, for instance, right? I'm kind of surprised that Yoru is not that high, and I'm also a bit surprised as well that like Viper was this high, right? Like I expected Viper's pick rate to maybe go up a bit after, you know, no tail, but for instance, I was like last year on Sunset, Viper's pick rate must have been like what, 10% maybe?
Maybe even less.
Maybe even less. Like,
yeah.
For it to be at 50% at this tournament, I was kind of shocked to see how many, you know, and we had like Paper X, Fnatic, you know, teams that were going towards the end were all playing Viper on Sunset. I was kind of shocked that, you know, so many were going in that direction.
Yeah, I feel like it's a thing where you might be copy pasting like game plans and strategies from other maps onto Sunset impromptu. Because again, map just came in for some of these EMEA teams. They had like no prep on it in a sense. Some of these teams had practice with a player for 1 day in terms of their whole composition. I'm not sure if Liquid got to play Sunset, but like if you're copy pasting from a bunch of other stuff in this pool, a lot of it has Viper. And you want to be creative with it. You want control. Initiators are gone. You want double controller, and then suddenly you have this Omen Viper thing going on again. So yeah, it just repeats in this like Ouroboros cycle. And yeah, you're just copy pasting stuff. A lot of this tournament I feel like was copy pasted from like previous things. There wasn't as much innovation here from what we saw before.
Yeah, I somewhat agree with that. And I think teams that were willing to get somewhat innovative actually did find some success from doing so as well, which is maybe a lesson. And honestly, it should be a pretty I think that's pretty obvious, right? When you're coming into a tournament and no one knows like exactly what everyone's going to play, like playing just like somewhat random stuff or different stuff to normal is probably going to be pretty good when you're not playing that many games overall. But let's start talking about teams. So as I said, we're going to go in reverse order. We're going to start with the teams that did really bad and move to the teams that did really good. Now, for some of these teams, we might not have that much to say, right? It might just be a sentence or two. For some of them, their stories are quite interesting, and we do need to spend some time on them. So, let's start with MIBR, who
of course
were the worst performing team of all time. They lost 13-1, 13-5, 13-7, and 13-6 to GenG and Team Liquid. Now, this GenG loss, I think you could maybe somewhat now, looking back, you know, particularly towards the start of the tournament, GenG were on fire. They didn't just destroy MIBR. They kind of destroyed everyone. But the Team Liquid loss, I think when we get to there, you have to remember Team Liquid are, you know, playing with a sub still. Yes, Nats was back, but he essentially had no time with the team. They were actually running a 6-man roster at this point, right? Swapping in and out. So talk me through. Let's just start here, right? 1, does it surprise you that this happened to MIBR, that they were this bad? And 2, why? Why did it happen to them?
Absolutely surprised me. I had these guys like maybe even top 4 in the tournament. For me personally, from what I was looking at in NA. Yeah, like Cortezia was doing stuff on Haven that like I think every team would have wished they had a Sentinel like him. I had him slotted for like just, you know, player of the year as well coming in. Like Verno, no matter what team he's on, looks absolutely insane. Coming into things, I felt like their potential was just up and up. Like they also on par of all of this have like what people say to be the best player in the whole world. Like the best in the world. He would have been, even if you put every team qualified for this, he would have been top 3 in people's rankings. And if you have someone like that, like this type of performance, being out aimed like this, being outbrained like this, just doesn't make any sense. And the rookie on your roster is the one who can put up any numbers consistently game after game. Your mental outside the game too just seems like it's absolutely shot. Dude, the expectations for me for MIBR were not like lower than Heretics level. I was not looking to see this team get sloshed, man. Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty big surprise. Like, not a surprise. Like, if you would have said they were going out in Swiss 0-2 and they wouldn't win a game, like, I don't think that would have been like completely shocked most people. Like, because
Really?
they
Yeah.
are an experienced team. I think people could have
Yeah.
said, okay, apart from Aspas, maybe the pressure will get to them. They're playing GenG first, who, I think most people saw it as like a 50-50 coming into the tournament. So if you say like, okay, they lose that 50-50, maybe in Swiss, then they get, a difficult team. Turns out that they didn't. They got a pretty favorable draw in Liquid, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't great. And as you say, like, you had 4, I mean, before XLG played, the bottom 4 rated players were all MIBR players. And then you just got Verno. Where did he finish, Verno? Let's see.
Or something.
Where did he finish? He was 3rd. He finished 3rd overall in this
3rd.
tournament, which
Holy
is kind of
shit.
crazy to have the 3rd best player rated overall, and then like 4 at the time the 4 literal worst players. So obviously that was a bit of a mess. My question for you is this: like, do you think that this, like, because normally when you go to an international, like, I think most people would say like, oh, it's good experience even if you don't do well, right? Like, it's good to go, it's good to get the experience. But when you get battered this badly, is that good for you?
It's good if you absorb something from it, but I feel like MIBR did like a skip the XP.
Well, yeah, they skipped your little press conference.
Dude,
yeah,
I was there for 40 minutes and the fans were there for 50. I'm glad that some of them got to sign and get their stuff signed at like the bus stop or whatever. Like MIBR still signed a little something, but holy shit, like you have to at least take the loss, right? I feel like the loss happened and now they're just going to be moving it around and hiding it, like when a police officer gets accused of something in North America. Like, he's just going to get, some time off, go take a vacation. Nothing happened, guys. Look the other way. It's the same thing here. Like, maybe Verno's happy about what happens now, but like no one's asked Osboss or really talked about what this means for his legacy. Like, this guy was in GOAT talks 24/7. I feel like that just disappears now. And for what actually happened, I don't think anyone got the time to slow down and really look at these games. Like, why did this team crumble? Questions for the coach. Like, how was this allowed to happen? Like, I feel like a lot of it was also, there was a lot of weight on ArtZine and like the calls and from the questions we did get to ask in press conferences on the first matchup. He took a lot of the blame on like, I was just getting out called completely. Everything I tried just wasn't working, and it was a really frustrating experience. I'm like, if that's the case against like a team like GenG, I understand that. Like the way they were playing is nuts. How do we move forward from that, right? You never got to learn from that perspective. So if you go to champions, right, with MIBR, which is very possible again, because NA is kind of a 4 or 5 team region, what happens then, right? Like, you don't get to have that learning experience from last time. You're setting yourself up to be a Heretics 2.0. Like so much pressure from a question from the last tournament that's unanswered that you fall again and crumble. So it's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I like MIBR, I think, throughout this entire year have been a very likable story. It's like they had all the ingredients of a very likable story. The Shio has to sit there and wait for 40 minutes before realizing that they aren't coming. Like, that was just like, because you lost. You didn't play very well. But like, you didn't lose in like, it's not like you got 26-0'd, or it wasn't like you, like, I think it'd be even worse if you got like, if you lost like double OT. Yeah, like if you're super close, like I could understand being like just so frustrated that you didn't want to do it. But you just kind of lost 2 normal maps that you clearly got outplayed. Like, I don't know. It seems a little bit strange for me, but let's move on from MMBR. Let's talk about, and it's interesting, on Platchat, Sideshow said, the MIBR, despite being the worst team of all time, weren't the most disappointing team. It was Team Heretics, and I do think that is probably fair. He's saying that because, of course, he had Team Heretics winning, which is probably the worst prediction of all time. I again though, looking like now that we've had like a bit of time to kind of, you know, reflect on that and kind of it's in kind of the past right now. See, unlike MIBR didn't make it to EWC, did they? I don't think they did.
I don't even know.
But I think Team Heretics did. Yeah. So they're gonna have to buckle up and play pretty soon again anyway. So yeah, we'll see how they bounce back. But what did you think of Heretics? What like again, what I'm kind of more interested now, you know, now that we're past the tournament, I'm kind of more interested in like what do you think of Heretics going forward? Because for MIBR, I think there's, you know, there still isn't that much pressure on them, like really, you know, like, you know, it's like if they underperform, maybe there is from Brazilian fans, I don't know, but you know, like they made it to an international. As you say, Americas, I feel like you said Americas is a 4 or 5 team. I feel like Americas is a 2-team region with then a couple others who can make international tournaments. That's what Americas really is this year. And yeah, so I don't think the pressure is like that great on them. Heretics though have constant pressure on them. That as long as they keep this, well, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't matter, even if they made a roster change or whatever, there will just from now on be pretty much constant pressure on Heretics to perform. And now the Paper X have won a tournament, now they're the big, like, oh, now you're the only team that's lost 2 finals and hasn't won a tournament. So now it's on you, Team Heretics. So there is pressure on this team. So where did it all go so bad, right? I think against Paper Rex, you know, okay, they lost Icebox, and then Pearl, they got absolutely giga stomped. You know, like just rolled. And we have seen Paper X do that to teams before, right? Even good teams. Paper X, if they're in a groove, and particularly I think we saw it in the grand final as well. Some of Paper X's attack side on Pearl is just insane. It's kind of insane they didn't keep picking it, to be honest, because their attack side with Jing, Satcheling, whatever, looks insane. But then when they played Wolves, this is where everyone thought, okay, Team Heretics, they got lucky, they got Wolves, right? Surely they're going to win. But as we know, they didn't. So Shayo told me through Heretics, told me through what went so wrong for them. And we know obviously Wolves ended up doing pretty well, but even as the big Wolves fan, if I'm being honest, I think if you asked Wolves truthfully, gun to their head before this game, are you going to beat Team Heretics? They would have said no. So how on earth did they lose to a team that thought that?
Well, okay, so when it comes to Heretics, I could like maybe switch this over to like say a team like Paper X, right? When Paper X, the worst thing that can happen for Paper X is a team basically outplays them, is ready for them, and like their stubbornness of doing the same thing aggressively over and over again gets exploited, right? We've seen that happen with them sometimes in a few games across the history of Paper X, really. The thing with Heretics and like even say Sentinels, the worst thing that can go wrong with some of these teams is they just forget to shoot on the day completely as a team. They're not confident. It's not like something the opponent's doing right or like there's a bad IGL going on. The whole team is literally bottified. Saw it in EMEA at the start or like maybe even week 2 or 3 with it where we're like, what just happened to Heretics this week? Let's just skip it. We don't even want to talk about it. Saw it happen in Bangkok as well. And it's happening here, man. I had the pleasure and I guess the privilege of like being able to see some of the things behind the scenes with Heretics. Dude, every conversation with Benji or the team was, hey, nice to meet you. You guys have to win the grand finals this year. Like second place Heretics, ha ha ha. Like fans would be saying that as their first thing to say to this team, this player that you're just meeting. And I was guilty of it too. Like Benji was like, Shayo, because like we know each other from Fortnite. And I inexplicably, the first thing I think was, hey man, not second this time. And his face just like half drops. And I'm like, oh fuck, like these guys really are like, it's living rent free for them in this sense. And I feel like the pressure just got to them, man. That pressure might have been there in some of those EMEA weeks as well. When you think about being 1-1, 1-2, 2-1, and needing to get those wins to qualify. And when that pressure's on you 24/7, you just like, you crumble, especially on a stage like that, just starting off, jet lagged in a different country type beat. Like so many things at hand. Wolves as well might not have been as prepped for. Like, honestly, who is watching Wolves at this point in the tournament, right? Like who's really
that's probably fair
down. Yeah, like if they were going up against PRX or maybe G2 or something, and like they'd have a lot of respect to watch Vaz anti-strat a lot. They're focused on their own game. They're double focused on like we're almost on elimination now. Like how much were they watching Wolves in preparation for this? Also, EMEA prep time, right? Like was completely nerfed as well. Yep. All of this into Heretics burrito it's not tasting good. Now, the cool thing though, to skip ahead just a little bit for Heretics, is that I feel like this whole they need to win things now is gone from them. And we got to ask that and feel that vibe as well after the Wolves loss in the press conference. They, expectations wise, just want to play now. And the whole we need to win a whole tournament so past them. And I think expectation wise for me as well and for fans, it's just like G2 now. I'm no longer coming into a tournament being like, they need to put up a trophy. It's I hope they make playoffs or I hope they make top 4. Like I don't care anymore about this team winning a trophy. Their expectations for me have been nerfed like by one stage. So I think that's good for the team.
Yeah, I mean I remember going into that funny, this game against Fnatic, but so obviously they lost to Fnatic here in the upper final in the EMEA. They then absolutely destroyed Liquid. I mean, I can't tell you it. This was not even this close. Like this game was not even that close. And then they got rolled themselves by Fnatic, pretty much. And I remember some of the and you're right. Like the production of this EMEA final did feel like the whole story of it was just about Heretics. Are they finally going to win a grand final? Like it was like Fnatic were barely even a part of the story, even though it's Fnatic, right? It was just like, oh, do you think Heretics will finally win a grand final? Like that was the only thing people cared about, and they didn't, and I think it did somewhat carry over. It was kind of a lingering constant effect for them. Like you said, they had less time to kind of bounce back from it. They didn't have a whole month off like the Chinese and America's teams where, like anything like that is kind of ancient history by the time you're going to the tournament. It felt like it still was a bit fresh for them, and they just played some pretty horrific Valorant, if I'm going to be honest. Like it really was quite bad top to bottom from Team Heretics. And it wasn't until I did a VOD review of that Paper X game that I really kind of truly realized, like, the way they played against Paper X, it wasn't as bad against Wolves, but it still wasn't good. But the way they played against Paper X, even on Icebox, like, they had an okay first half here on Icebox, right? The first half was okay. This second half, these 2 rounds that they won were Paper X throwing 3v5s.
Yeah.
Like they won 2 3v5s in a row for these 2 rounds. That were just classic Paper X trolls where everyone just takes a 1v1 and they all die, right? Yeah. But every other single one of these rounds, Heretics played horribly. Like truly really bad. And then against Wolves as well, it wasn't much better. And so yeah.
Yeah,
Heretics will make champs, right? We both agree Heretics will make champs. Yes. Whether it's through points or whether they just qualify normally, they will make champs.
Because EMEA is like a 1-team region sometimes, I swear to God. Like, and they're still a good team on the region. But like, yeah, if for more context for them as well, like the performance coach, we got an insight, was saying he was trying to help this team out 24/7 during Toronto, and they were just so wired up, even like in between games, just could not calm down. And you mentioned the Paper X game as well. Like the number one thing with Heretics and their fault is that every player is expected to be a shooter like Paper X, and every player is expected to do a lot in their role. They also have like a savior complex. Like I need to make the play to save the game. We saw a bit of that like in this finals as well with Paper X and Fnatic. There were some moments where Fnatic players were just kind of outreaching to kind of save the game and like playing past. I think the Sentinels game as well with PRX. It was always PRX where this happens for some reason. I don't know why they force people to like peek out, but one by one, Heretics' players were just not calming, trying to make that 2x play, and it wasn't working. And that happened so much in the Wolves games as well, where there were winnable rounds, especially on Pearl. And then you had like Miniboo just going out, trying to get like a 2-piece by himself while there's like util available to help him. But, you're trying to make this X play because there's so much pressure on you. It was just, they got cooked. And I hope that now that's all gone and everyone can just be like, hey, it's Heretics. Hope they play well today. And these guys think about the round in front of them and not the grand. You're not at grand finals. Like it's
every game was a grand final for them. Essentially, they turned every game into a grand final.
Yeah.
The problem for them is though, like here's the thing: if you're Team Heretics, right? This is where maybe I would say if they can lock in for stage 2, if they can like get over Toronto and be like, oh well, we played terribly, let's just regroup, refocus, and get back to what we know we can do. If they can do that, then if I was Team Heretics, I would be like, let's win stage 2. Like let's make that the grand final that we win, because there will be less pressure on it, because we'll already, like if we make it to the grand final, we'll already be in champs. So it doesn't, like, win or lose, it's an exhibition match, right? Like, it doesn't matter at all, right? And so, like, let's just make that one the one that you win, so that then you can say, well, we've won a grand final now. We've got a trophy. Everyone can shut up, you know, and we can just go on with our lives. Because I do agree with you that it's like the expectations maybe are a bit lower and maybe there's a bit less pressure, but you do feel like as soon as they get into a grand final again, everyone's going to say the same thing. You know, like if they got to Champs Grand Final, everyone would be saying, are you going to finish second again? Not only that, but we know it now as well. They also have a curse. They can only lose to first and third in internationals. It's crazy. Like if you are in Champs, you want to be in Team Heretics group. Like give me Team Heretics so I can beat them and know I'm at least top 3. Like crazy. That honestly, the fact that that still held up with Wolves and Paper Rex is unbelievable that happened. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to BLG, who we probably don't need to spend as much time on, because BLG. Also, by the way, China starts in like a week and a couple of days. Don't know if you knew that, but it's kind of wild.
Fucking crazy. Yeah,
they're starting like 2 weeks early. Yeah.
Yep.
Funny. I actually quite like it, to be honest. It's good for me because it gives me something to watch. But anyway, BLG. I feel like BLG played to par. I think if you ask most people what will BLG do, they beat a nerf team Liquid. Only just, but you know, they did beat a nerf team Liquid. And then, you know, they lost to Sen. Again, they won a map. Not too bad. And then they ultimately lost to the mighty, mighty Wolves. Now, coming into this last game, Wolves versus Bilibili, like I'll say from the Wolves perspective, I kind of felt I knew Wolves were going to win this game. Once Wolves beat Team Heretics, I was like, there's no way they're losing to BLG. Like they will win this game. I was very, very confident that Wolves would win this game. And I think for BLG, my takeaway, don't know what you think of the show, but my takeaway is that their play style, you know, in terms of like kind of heavy relying on 1 or 2 players to, you know, essentially get them most of their kills and you know, like win a lot of rounds for them. That just doesn't stand up as nearly as much when you get to playing higher levels of teams, right? Like once you get to the big stage, yeah, you know, you can have, you know, certain people, you know, absolutely go crazy. We saw it obviously at this tournament, you know, multiple times and whatever, but like it's not a reliable, like that's going to happen most maps, right? You might be able to carry a map every so often, but you're not going to carry a whole tournament. Like it's just not possible. And I think that is kind of BLG's problem, that kind of happened for them, right? Like, yeah, YZ had some decent moments, but didn't like go crazy. You know, same for like, I think Russia had some, you know, nice moments, but didn't go like, you know, it didn't take over an entire, you know, series. So I just don't think that they have the potential with the way that they're currently set up to really make a deep run.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Even coming out of China, I thought that Wolves were like the best team purely because we had so many spear teams coming into this tournament. And I've been rocking with this analogy the entire stage 1 and start of Masters as well, is that there's so many baseball teams, and Wolves and certain other teams like maybe even Sen are really good glove teams where they just are good at catching these spearheaded teams where you throw in YZ, you throw in like Rarga, and these guys have such good defensive setups with Lysor and like Bang and people in the right spots at the right times where you can't just neon everywhere. And that the big thing too for, I think that was a nerf for BLG, is that Fracture was taken out of the pool, and YZ's biggest and hottest moments were on that map. I think the map changes in general and Tejo getting away kind of makes it harder for people like YZ to be able to find the space to dribble on the court, essentially, right? And have the space to play Neon, have the space to be a little bit more proactive and creative. Like you just have to raw entry now. That's all that's needed for your duelist players on this patch. And if that's the case, like a team that like Wolves that's also amping up, and dude, like from match to match, they were improving like crazy. Their confidence was getting up. Like Spring was just online.
Oh, we'll get to Wolves. We'll get to Wolves.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just glazing us to the fact that you have like 2 to 3 players active on different roles. If the only person on your team is the threat, which was like YZ, that's a problem. The match where they actually won against Liquid, Russia had to level up to like Bolster on Haven levels in that 1 week of EMEA. Like you had to have 2 people being a threat. If it's just the duelist, you track the duelist wherever he goes. You play a little bit of retake. He has no utility, and you win. And that was just happening over and over again. Or you have a setup that's like just anti-dive, and what the hell can YZ do? And like the thing was in press conferences as well, BLG were just kind of like, yeah, that happened. Like it just didn't work. Like it is what it is. We have much to improve on. Can't wait for stage 2. Like it was kind of expected from them almost as well. And everyone was asking Russia the same questions. Everyone became Russia fans, especially because I feel like the onus was on him to really perform for the team to do well or not. But yeah, I think this is the one team where we can say things went as expected. Like this is what we thought a second, third seed Chinese team looks like.
Yeah, and I think for BLG, again, they'll probably make champs, I would guess. And
you think?
That one I am a bit less certain of, because like EDG, you would assume will.
Yep.
Points wise, XLG and Wolves are ahead of BLG now.
Yep.
So
Nongshim, like Titan didn't make it, and they have like such prestigious players who have made it before, like the
Nongshim
Kashu gang.
You think Nongshim
RB like could be possible? No,
in Korea.
Oh shit, my bad. That's actually completely my bad. I'm fucking
sorry. I knew we were gonna get comments, but yes, RB moved from a Chinese team to a Korean team. I can understand your confusion there,
yeah.
But yeah, there are some teams in China that I think might cause them some problems, but I would still put them as slight favorites overall. Let's move to Team Liquid though, who obviously had a weird tournament. Like they were set up in a weird spot initially. They didn't have Nats for this Bilibili game. The fact they won a map is actually pretty impressive, considering they didn't have their IGL and like second best fragger on the team. Then you got MIBR this game, and they comfortably beat MIBR, right? And I think we got some really good moments from both Nats and Kiko in across the tournament, but in this game as well, right? And this is where they entered the 6-man roster stuff, where Serial and Penny were both playing. And to be fair to Penny, I think he actually, I mean, he was 6-0 here in first kills, first death. That's pretty good. He did a good job, right? Like coming in, he did way better than I thought he would do, to be honest. And ultimately, they fell to Paper X. Now, again, what you have to remember about this game versus Paper X, because obviously it's very funny looking back at it, is one, Team Liquid beat Paper X on Split, which is no easy thing to do, right? Like this, we now know, like this was very impressive. Yeah. Liquid Sunset wasn't great, but again, they didn't have a ton of time to prep it. And again, they're playing with, players coming in and out. But then, again, this is probably, some people have forgotten this, but this third map looked like this.
Yep.
And some of you might have forgotten that this was the 11-1 into 11-1 the other way into OT.
Dude, this was one of the best matches of the entire tournament. And the only reason Liquid lost this is because you went into the Interstellar Black Hole TMV and you were like knocking on the door, telling Patatek to like, or what was it, telling Forsaken to turn around on C site and make a weird movement. There was some guy in the 5th dimension that made Patatek shoot in C and lose his 1v whatever clutch. And Paper X won the entire tournament.
They could have
just been knocked down. Yeah, I mean, bro, the comeback was insane. This started to look and show the weaknesses of Paper X in terms of trying to close out games as well. I mean, so many comebacks, close comebacks happen to these guys 24/7. This was a start, but genuinely, Team Liquid could have won this game very easily. There was just nerves happening. Patatek whiffed one bullet, and Paper X now have a trophy. Like, if you think about it from a narrative perspective, this was the beginning. Yeah. This was the once upon a time Paper X had a dream. They always were in second place. Yeah, just insane.
I think you could very easily make the argument that this map really might have helped Paper X win this tournament, because it's one of those situations, and it happened to Fnatic for a while as well. After Fnatic won lock-in, they would frequently go down in maps, and they would always come back. And I think part of it is just mentally, if you know you can survive it, it's like, well, we've survived worse, right? And from Paper X's perspective, think about the last map on Lotus. It was 11-7. They were up in a very good spot. Could have easily won. They end up 12-11 down. Well, the thing is, you've been in worse, right? They've been in a worse spot and still won, because at this point, they've lost 11 of the last 12 rounds coming into this round. And as you say, Patatek, I mean, this is the moment. Like, this is the moment that, imagine if Paper X lost this game. Like, imagine the different narrative, the different world we could be living in if Patatek wins this clutch. and
Yeah.
Liquid win this game. Like Paper X would be known as the biggest chokers still of all time, and there is no one that even comes close.
It's facts. It's actually facts. But man, there was someone knocking on some door or pushing Patatek's like index finger to shoot. Like, and I don't blame him. The nerves at that moment,
Yeah,
like the
but
level
you could
of,
tell he was nervous. It's quite strange
Yeah.
to see someone, a pro player in a game, you see him be nervous because a couple rounds earlier, he had a clutch very similar and he played it perfectly and he won the round. And, you know, the score was like 12-7 or whatever at that point, right? And Liquid still had a ton of rounds to still get. So obviously he was like, whatever. But as soon as it got real, you see like his aim is like shaky. His aim is literally shaky.
Dude, it's also like from listening to the players and asking them questions. When the crowd is roaring, you don't hear it, but you can feel it on your seat. And at that moment, when Forsaken starts to cross, I was in the fan zone. The entire arena was like, oh, and the bars were shaking, man. And so I'm looking on stage and his aim's getting shaky. I'm like, is it our fault? Like, what's going on? And then the whiff happens and it's like, oh my fucking God. It's just wild. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. But for Team Liquid's sake, I think overall, I think you have to be like pretty happy, to be honest. Like, I mean, ultimately you lost the tournament winner, so it's not that bad. But you know, like,
what do you
go on?
What are your thoughts on like their approach to like, hey, Lohan's like, we don't know what to expect. We had one day of practice with Penny. We're gonna try crazy comps. We're gonna try the 6-man roster. Like, what's your approach to that? Because there's a lot of people that didn't like that. It's like, I get that you want to try something different, but why don't you try something different that's been tested before? Why go for this triple controller stuff that's happening on Icebox? Like, what are your thoughts on all those types of like big wrench throws in the mix for Team Liquid?
I mean, I think you got nothing to lose, right? You got nothing to lose, and so I'm personally like it's easy to say that, oh, they played a triple controller comp on Icebox and their defense side didn't, you know, work and it didn't make any sense, and like, yeah, that's true, but would they have won with playing a normal comp? Like, I think saying that a team with no practice is definitely going to win by playing a standard comp is kind of ridiculous to argue. I think that, like, I would probably, I mean, would I have played a triple controller comp on Icebox? Maybe not, but like throwing like weird stuff at the wall, playing with a 6-man roster, you know, bringing in like Penny to play double duelist, or, you know, bringing in Serial to play double Sentinel, or Viper with a Sentinel, like, I think that honestly that probably gave them the best chance to win, because it keeps your opponent guessing. They don't, like, you know, going from playing as double Sentinel one map to playing double against double duelist the next, right? Very different feelings.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, they had nothing to lose. Like, they had no practice time. Like, I don't know. I thought it was fine. Like, I don't think they really had that much of a chance this tournament anyway. So I don't really think it even matters that much. Because, like, even if they got to playoffs, they probably were going to go out fairly quick. You know, I doubt.
Yeah.
I doubt they were going to do too much damage overall, even with, you know, a bit of extra prep time. So, yeah, I think it's fine. Let's move on to the playoff teams, though. And we'll start with another team that I think was probably a bit disappointing from most people's perspective, and that was XLG, who went out in 2. And look, losing to Sen and G2, is there any, like, great shame in that? No, right? I think most people would have said, like, you know, that's a pretty rough draw to get overall, although they did pick Sen, but, you know, like, overall, those are 2 pretty tough teams to play. I think the manner, though, in which it happened and the manner that they went out, you know, they never really seemed... Raga got 1 ace, but other than that, it just never really felt like, you know, they had that much of a chance. And again, it's another team who had to, you know, bring in kind of a last-minute player there. So, you know, maybe, again, they were just in a rough spot.
I would love to have seen like what XLG looked like with YOU, and like how these guys could have performed, because like their potential of like activating the duelist comparatively to like every other team, I think was even higher than RRQ. Like they had the potential to really get Raga online and up in the business in so many places, but they picked a guy up who like doesn't even speak English, I think was the whole thing, or I forget there was a language barrier with me.
No, yeah, he speaks English, but Raga doesn't.
But Raga's, yeah. So like you have a situation where like the Raga was like never initiated for properly with MIDI, which is unfortunate. MIDI also was like picked up, I believe, from by, was it Trace? I forget who it was specifically, but he was picked up because he plays Tejo. Like that was why they needed him, and now he's just being picked up as a +1 on a team when that agent's not even in the patch. I know he played a bit of Breach, but I'm not sure what your opinion was on Breach. I think after the nerfs, he was so difficult to play, and just kind of unapproachable when it comes to like a pro level now, comparatively to what you have everywhere else. Especially if you don't have comms with your number one guy. I think the team was just set up to fail, and everyone's attitudes to their loss was just like, okay, moving on. Like, it's just unfortunate. Hopefully we see them again because Rarga is just insane. Hopefully we get like a Russian super team across the world where like Rarga and Vukashu get to play on the same team. We get like more people involved. Chronicle leaves, Leo joins, Kron joins, like this super team as well. I don't know what I'm cooking, but anyways,
the Russian super
the
team
fact
would
that
go
I'm
pretty hard. You are right.
yeah, the fact
like
that I'm
the
talking about a
Raga
Russian
double
super team,
duelist.
yeah, but that's as much as I have to say about XLG. I'm talking about a fantasy team that doesn't exist. Like, there's not much else to say.
There isn't much to say.
Yeah.
So we'll move on. We'll move on to a different team that I do have some things to say because this, of all the team, this team probably annoyed me the most at this tournament. And that team was RRQ. This team annoyed me a great deal.
Yeah.
So you'll notice here, they won one map of the 5 that they played. Okay? What do you notice about the one map that they won versus the maps that they lost?
The map that they won, they got some double duelist action going on. The maps that they lost does not have that situation happening.
That is true. And one of those duelists is called Yoru.
Yes.
I could not believe, I literally cannot still to this day believe this, that RRQ, who were playing Yoru, for instance, on Ascent before, who were playing Yoru on Lotus before, I don't think they were on Icebox, but, on these maps that they also lost on, they were playing Yoru before. They have arguably the literal best player on Yoru in the world, who, by the way, is the best duelist in the game. And because a different agent got nerfed, they decided to not play Yoru anymore. I think that is absolutely criminal. I think that is so criminal from RRQ. The fact that they did not... Well, they only played one map of Yoru, and they dominated that map.
Yep.
I honestly, like, this drove me mad. When I was watching RRQ against Fnatic, when we're watching them getting stomped on Lotus, and then they come to Haven... Oh, RRQ, they've turned up, they're good again. Like, it's fine, that they aren't nervous, clearly, because they're doing well. Well, no, maybe that's just the fact that they played, a comp that actually suits them. And I do have to say, like, I'm not going to blame them too much for Ascent here, because we now know that Fnatic's Ascent is very good, right?
Yes.
At the time, everyone was probably looking at this and being like, oh, you got Ascent in the map pool against Fnatic? Like, that's pretty good. Like, that's a good pick. Like, you're in a good spot here, RRQ. As we now know, Fnatic's Ascent just happened to be, very good all of a sudden, and RRQ couldn't have known that. So that's a bit unfortunate for them. But at the same time, I do think that they kind of trolled themselves by just not playing comps that were good for them and not realizing that their win cons were so often like, one, Jemkin is insanely good at Yoru. Because that's the thing. It's not even just the fact that they lost. It's the fact that Jemkin was like okay on all of the other maps. And at one point on this Haven map against Fnatic, he's like 18-2 or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, let's not play Yoru. This was his side. This is his attack side on Haven.
Yeah.
He's 18-4. 18-4.
Yeah.
Let's put this guy on Jet instead. Or Ray so he can go 6-16. Or 9-17. Look at these ratings. Look at this rating. Look at this rating.
Oh my god. 0.29.
And he's going 18-4 on Yoru.
Yeah, top 5 player in the entire tournament. By the way, it's tragic, man. And I think, like, I asked people as well, like, if we could TLDR RRQ and like their performance in their run, it's just like Jemkin sleeping. Like, he just did not show up. And I'm not sure if it's a Jemkin decision or if it's a team decision. I think we mentioned it before this all started, but like, we're either going back in the past on playbooks or we're going so far forward and innovating like crazy. And I feel like RRQ is one of the teams that went back in the past, forgot what made them so good. It wasn't the Tejo. Just a prep thing, man. I didn't get to ask RRQ too many questions or get too much insight as to what was going down because some of the thrashings, I was like, I don't want to approach this. Like, these teams are like in tears, they're kind of sad. It's like, I'll move on. And something happened so fast. Like the RRQ Fnatic game started, like this was the second match of the day.
Yeah.
Ended so quickly where like you could just take an early train home. And like people were just like exiting the venue, like, oh wow, what a fast day. and you kind of forgot about these matches too. Like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jemkin just didn't show up. But again, one of these things where it's like, even if he's not meant to show up or he doesn't get the resources to show up, a spear, would you consider RQ kind of one of those spear teams, like just carried by the duelist, carried by that performance?
Yeah,
It's
somewhat.
not there. Yeah, so it's another one of those XLG, BLG situations where, like, regardless of what it was,
Star
opponent
player,
doing well,
just got shut down.
star player just gets shut down. Happened with MIBR as well. Ospas, like, want to look at his ratings, see what's going on, like whatever it was. Even if Verno's performing, your star player's not there, the team goes home.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, but I do think that them. I'm not saying they would have won these games because again, from the Wolves' perspective against RRQ, I was like, they're gonna beat RRQ. I felt very good as soon as Wolves got RRQ. I felt very good, like, and I didn't get to watch that game because I was at a wedding, but I kind of just knew like the confidence that was building in Wolves. Like RRQ was the best opponent they could have got. Give me a team that has never played an international before. Like, give me a team that hasn't played on an international stage before, and Wolves will beat them, and they did.
Yep.
But yeah, I still think that it's kind of criminal because RRQ also that it's not just that Jemkin is the best Yoru player, which is why everyone rated him so highly in a heavy Yoru meta. I mean, again, I'm still shocked that Yoru's pick rate was lower than Ray's. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever because Yoru is better than Ray's. But like, it's the coaching staff, the team. They knew how to play Yoru. They had some of the most innovative ideas on Yoru. The way they would use ults was way better than most teams with the Yoru ult. Like, they just had better ideas overall. So yeah, that was annoying. Let's move on though to a different team before I keep going on. And that is the team that I'm gonna call the new DRX. Sentinels are the new DRX.
Okay. Yep.
Because you see, and I'm saying this to annoy Sen fans, but where did Sentinels finish in this tournament?
Where did they finish? Not top 4.
5th, 6th.
Fifth?
They finished 5th, 6th. Where did DRX always used to finish? 5th, 6th.
5th, 6th, yeah.
And
I'm wondering if Sen fans even know who DRX are, but anyways, it's fucking, they barely even know.
They'll know who DRX are. But yeah, I just think that Sen, they've kind of become this team that is very good, but not great. I just think that that's who they are right now. They're just this team that is. I don't know. They just seem to have a bit of a ceiling, right? Like, will they make all 3 internationals? Absolutely, right? Like, are they better than their regional competition? Absolutely. But this is what was old DRX, right? Like, would DRX make every international? Absolutely. Would they make it into the playoffs? Yes. Once they got to the playoffs and got into like closer games with very good teams, they probably lose, and then they go home, and it's like, oh, we did good, I guess. Now the thing that Sen, the Sen haters, the thing that they will say is, that they were just Chinese farmers, right? Because they,
oh man,
they just
fucking narrative, yeah.
They just beat 3 Chinese teams, and then they lost to non-Chinese teams. But to me, again, it's more so about, they beat 3 teams that they're just better than. And then they came up against a couple teams that they aren't as good as, and so they lost. Because that's who Sen are. Because they just... And again, I think for Sen at this tournament, in fact, I'm actually going to check right now. I want to know where their players ended up, like, stats-wise. Because Zekken here had a good VLR rating. But I don't know about you. Like, this VLR rating to me didn't register nearly as much as like the people around him, right? When I look at the people around Zekken here, I think, yeah, Texture had a crazy. I can think of many Texture moments that he went crazy. I can think of obviously many Spring moments. Even Verno, like, you could see with your eyes, like, he was solo helping the MIBR win any round. Alpha, we all know, went crazy, particularly towards the end of the tournament. Trent had a very good tournament. Leaf had a very good tournament. Like, and then the Zekken in amongst them, and Zekken, in my mind, had one incredible map. He went absolutely crazy. I can't remember. It was a sunset.
The split. Oh, it was the sunset. I swear it was like a split op map. Nor was it sunset opping, where like he was just.
He went 27 and 10 against XLG on sunset. He might have had 2 maps. Maybe I missed one. But
yeah,
he went absolutely crazy that map. And then I just felt like he was okay the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like and in the games that they lost against PaperX and Fnatic, I'd be interested actually. Let's see what was his ratings in those games, right? So a 1.06 here against Paper Rex. So yeah, like, okay. And against Fnatic, yeah, a 0.95, right? So like below average. So and that's what I felt like came through. I mean, he's 7-18 here as well in first kills, first deaths against Fnatic. So not great. But that to me is like what I felt in this tournament is that, in fact, this is very reminiscent. This game against Fnatic, this is what I felt. On Fnatic's side, here's Alpha plus 25, right? On Sentinel's side, everyone's just kind of okay, and then John is underperforming, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's not to say John underperformed the whole tournament, but it was just like, it's just a bunch of okay. Like, I would weirdly say that like Zelsis was their biggest overperformer, right? Versus is kind of like what you expect, your average for that player.
Yeah.
Like Zelsis was playing very good for Zelsis, and the rest were just kind of like, okay.
I would put Narrate on that line.
Narrate also, that's true. That is true. Narrate did have some very good maps. But again, I didn't feel like it wasn't all the time.
It wasn't all. So here's the issue. Why? I feel like in domination, we forget great plays, especially if it's not very flashy. Like Alpha Year, the way he was playing was like, oh, fuck, they picked Chamber on a set. What's going on here? And like it was against 2-3 man pushes where he was getting crazy stuff done. It was in a clutch where he's playing gun game and winning. Like this guy's also going plus 30 in like 20 round games, like 20, 30 round games sometimes when it comes to OT close to. Like the guy is performing 24/7. When it comes to other players on other teams, PRX, like Forsaken as well. PRX is 2v4s that are happening 24/7. All these players who were great at this tournament and in the top 10 had a lot of moments in adversity where they rose. For Sentinels, for Zekin especially, he was such a shutdown player. Like locked Wolves, like I think that split game from him, I just want to see what his score was on that one. Zekin specifically 18 and 19, I guess. I don't even know what it was. Was it like on defense where he was just popping off with the op? 13 and 9 on attack. There was one map where like the enemy team just could not challenge, like I guess it wasn't split. They just couldn't challenge Sentinels because Zekin was opping, teleporting the other side of the map, getting another pick. Like he was everywhere in the walls. But like again, when it's not done through adversity, when it's just shut down, it's early Swiss where they're getting these these results. Kind of falls into the narrative of Sentinels just facing easy teams type thing, like they're just kind of dominating and you don't remember this stuff happening because when push came to shove in the playoffs where like matches, we're starting to see why teams are the way they are. You're right. Everyone just kind of played how they did. I think for Sentinels specifically as well, I'm not sure if this correlates with John's poor performance in game. The communication channels specifically, I watched your breakdown of Sentinels versus PRX. Half the plays they're making, you don't understand why they're happening. Just seems like the teammates were not talking to each other. Like Bang swinging backwards off of map and like not having John QT's at least dog at the same time, Narrate dying with his ultimate in that moment.
Yeah.
No one is talking. Like it just seems like every time this team loses, no one is talking. And if John is also like bottom fragging at the same time, we need Kaplan's timeouts for these guys to win like 2 rounds in a row. That's a problem. And like I know it's not they used to have a Heretics problem where like they would go out 0-2, they'd be the team where no one could shoot. Now it feels like, they've hit that ceiling, and for some reason, at a high level, they can't perform farther and higher. I'm not sure when they fix that. G2 had this really interesting thing to say at conferences, which is like, it's annoying playing at internationals because there's no practice for this outside internationals. You go home, and it's the easiest qualification, and I can see that problem for Sentinels as well. They're not going to go back and play like 2G and 100 Thieves trying weird shit where Zekin will just easy diff them. Like, we're going to be going back to Furia. We're going back to watching a Furia game after all of this, right? Like it's crazy, man. And then they have to come back and play Paper X and Fnatic. And they might be beating teams like, XLG not having their best player. They're going to be facing teams sometimes that might not challenge them completely all the way towards the top. Also want to denounce that, by the way. That BLG game was close. They lost the map. Other maps were slightly close. That Wolves game.
I'm very much of the opinion. Had Sen played how they did, like I was so annoyed watching that Wolves game, the first one against Sen. I was so annoyed because I was like, this team is so beatable. Like Wolves should win this game. Like during the game, like as Sen were making a comeback on split, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. We should be beating this team. Like I cannot believe that I'm saying that, because obviously at that point, Wolves, it's their first game. No one thinks they can beat Sentinels, and I'm saying, like we should be winning. Like this team, we can beat this team. This team's beatable. And I genuinely think had Wolves come in to that Sen game with the confidence that they had later, they would have won that 2-0. It wouldn't have even been that close. Like, I think even the most delusional Sen fan would probably say, like, overall, Wolves played better than Sen at this tournament. They were a better team than Sen at this tournament. And I literally think the only reason Sen won that game, and John, even in, like, coming into Sen's second game, like, on the broadcast, like, you know, they do one of those interviews, when he was talking about the Wolves game, he even pretty much said as much, I'm pretty sure. He was like, yeah, we could tell they were getting nervous in, like, the second half of Split. Like, you know, you could see their inexperience showing up. It was like, yeah, that's why you won. You didn't, like, John was like, we didn't play that great. And yeah, they didn't. And again, I just feel like you're right. It's interesting that, like, yeah, like, Sen do seem to have this bit of a ceiling against, you know, teams that, you know, are the very, very good teams to great teams. They just can't.
Yeah.
It does feel like maybe this version of Sen just can't quite do it. A lot of Sen fans are saying that, you know, they would prefer John back on Sentinel, Zelsis back on Initiator. Personally, I'm not that against it, because I'm remembering again that split against, like, Paper Rex, where it just feels like when you're playing that style, and, like, Zelsis, you know, in particular, is like on Cypher, it does feel like you lose out on a bit of, like, he's not taking those aggressive timings. He's not, or if he is, he's probably not winning that crucial 1v1 that then wins you the round, right? Whereas so I do think there is something in that. Maybe, obviously, it feels a bit reactionary of just like, oh, go back to the thing where you won, you know, like that doesn't always get work. But I do think that possibly is something in it that might be, it might be better for both Celsius and John.
Yeah.
Even if it makes the IGLing worse, the individual performances might be better, which might be better for the team.
I think so. Something needs to change, because the best rounds I see from this team is where they actually take risks. And I know the last time they were taking so many risks, that's when they were having the confidence problems. That's where we saw the O2 bomb out Sentinels. But, like, Bang actually pushing B main, like, these guys talking to each other. If you never take risks and play the same monotonous game, that's where you lose comms. I have experience with this with teams. It's like, if you start doing the same thing every single time, sometimes your teammates think everything's automatic. They stop calming. They just wait for the first thing to happen. If no one's taking that onus, there's not a check happening 24/7. It's clear there's a communication gap with this team in high pressure moments. And again, I don't think it's going to be solved in an A. We're going to be playing against dogs. Sometimes you might get a big bark with G2, right? But even then, it's like all these teams are not being challenged to their utmost potential in gameplay. These guys need to, at least when, I guess, if that they're not having that for their individual play, work on the communication, man. We can't be losing comms in rounds like the very last of the half, right? Like, if John's not playing good individually, we need something from him to bolster up the team. I know he might not be that type of Sufat baby, like, you know, Zelsis type of individual, but if Zelsis can't focus on doing that in the mid round, someone needs to be that voice on the team. Also, for Sen versus Wolves specifically, Wolves could never win that game because, like, the master has to, like, beat the student first, right? And be like, hey, you're not that good yet in the training arc. And then Wolves can go on and, like, you know, what is it? Uguay dies and Poe becomes the Dragon Warrior type shit. Like, that happens later. So, yeah, there's a whole narrative beat to where Wolves would never win that matchup, unfortunately, but it is what it is.
I think this round is quite fitting as like a showcase of Sentinels, right? Because I'm thinking back to this round, and, like, this is a great round plan from Fnatic, and this is so what's going to happen here is Boaster goes underneath and destroys the turret through his orb, right? They know that Zelsis likes to do this kind of setup, and then you've got Kayak and Alpha, and Zelsis is just, like, you know, completely focused on Boaster. He doesn't think that this is a possibility. It's a great round by Fnatic, but, like, Sen just on at that level where they can, like, if they get hit with a great round, they lose, right? Whereas Sen, like, you know, who maybe were winning Madrid or whatever, if someone did a great round against them, they'd still have a chance. They'd still find a way. It feels like this version of Sen, they can't find a way out of these sort of situations. Like, if someone hits them with a great round, these very good teams, you know, will do this pretty often, that Sen don't really have the necessary answer necessarily. And yeah, I think it's interesting to see where they go, because they are just on this kind of, like, story, it feels like, where they're going to make champs, they're going to make playoffs in champs. And then again, like, right now, I just feel like there probably will be other teams who are just hitting a higher peak at that moment. And I also feel like Sen suffer with this thing that's happening now as well. And it's very fitting that Paper Rex is the team that won this tournament because of that. where, and maybe it happened a bit to G2 here as well, where like you playing perfect Valorant isn't perfect all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like if your opponent knows that when, you know, this happens, they will always do this because it's the correct response, it becomes easy to play against because you know what they're going to do. And I feel like Sen are the team that maybe even embody this more than G2, because I do feel like Jorgmo and Leaf are people who will take risks sometimes and do like stuff that, you know, isn't the correct choice. But I feel like on Sen, even Zekken sometimes feels quite restricted in some of the decisions he makes, where it's like, oh, I got the first kill, so I will always play this safe. But then you become very predictable in terms of, well, okay, you've retreated. Now we know when you do this, you're going to now do an A split or whatever. So we'll stack A and we just read you. And then you lost the round because of that, right? Whereas instead, if Zekken gets a first kill and then continues forward and takes a ton of space, and it's like, oh, now you always lose because, you know, he's in such a good spot. Like, it feels like Sen are the embodiment of that we've moved. It's like in poker, right? Like in poker, there are, you know, there are some situations in poker where it's like 100% you should always do this, right? In some situations, like you should always fold, you should always go all in this spot. Like, you know, they are just always the correct play. But there are some spots, and most of them are not 100% you should do this or that, but there's still probably a better option overall, but you shouldn't do it all the time. Because then it becomes obvious, like, hey, if this is like a 55% fold and, you know, 40%, you know, you raise or whatever, well, this guy always plays perfectly, so he's always going to fold. But that's not how you play perfect, because then you just become very readable in terms of, like, what you're going to do. So,
yeah, even if you're powerful. Basically, like, to hop on that poker analogy, Sen only play aces and kings. Ever.
Yeah.
And like if you do that at home games, if you do that at the start of the tournament all the way to like the playoffs of a poker tournament.
Yeah, against bad players, that'll work. Yeah. Like against bad players, that'll work.
Never play and always have aces and kings, and people will just be like, I fucking call, no way he has it again. I'll have it again, man. And they'll sit there and they'll be comfortable. Suddenly you're up against like Negranu and he's just looking at you like fucking eyes down your soul.
Yeah, this guy's free money. Yeah.
Yeah. And like Sen will play the aces, play everything perfectly, and no one will call. No one will do shit. And they're like, what the fuck? They'll just get etched out slowly from the tournament. Yeah. And then you wonder, oh yeah, Sentinels was here. What the fuck did they do again? Like I remember they were Zekken was popping off against these other teams in Swiss, but then what happened? Like that's the thing. They don't even lose in bang out fashions. Their games just
slowly fade away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and that is where they are right now. So yeah, maybe learn from Paper X. Randomly peek through a smoke every so often, and you'll look stupid half the time, but also half the time it'll win you around.
I think it'll just be the G2 thing. They'll have to go to an international. Like we'll see them in Paris, and I hope they take more risks, because even taking risks against some of these Americas teams, they won't look like risk thoughts. Like, yep, Zekken 100% would do that and get all these kills. We just gotta wait and see if they take risks at that big level, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also you talk about taking risks. Don't play Waylay on a Sen.
Oh man, dude, if they
there's risks and then the stupidity. See, that's the thing. It was like they just played aces and kings, and then for some reason on a Sen against Fnatic, they decided I'm going to go all in with 7-2.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and I was like, what? Dude, there's levels to this, Sentinels. There's levels.
Yeah, I was sitting there and I'm like, holy shit! They got Sunset Ascent Icebox against Fnatic. Yeah. Fnatic are a comeback team on Icebox. Sentinels are get a lead fast on Icebox and never lose the lead type of team. And then I'm sitting there like I'm a genius. Like they win something. Like, see guys, like this is why you don't know Valorant and I know Valorant. And then the fucking rest of this shit happens. I'm like, all right, it is what it is. Anyways.
Okay, we talked a decent amount there about Sentinels. I feel like we're going to talk a decent amount about this next team as well, because this next team is GenG, who perhaps had one of the most interesting tournaments. I would argue, like, for a team that didn't even make the top 4, this has to be one of the most interesting runs in terms of how you got to finishing 5th, 6th. They come out, they stomp MIBR. They go against Paper Rex, the eventual winners. They destroy them. And really, on Ascent, you know, this is what's interesting, and we'll get to this. Again, on Ascent, they started off dominating Paper Rex here as well, right? They were up 8-4. It was going well. They eventually closed that out. They then play against Fnatic. They lose a close split. You know, this is a tough game against the eventual second place, right? But they come out on top. Everything's looking good for GenG. They then come up against the worst team in the tournament. Little Wolves. And what happens? They start dominating. Because that's the thing. You look at the scores and you're like, ooh, close game. That tells you none of this story. It tells you none of how we got there. Because this split, I mean, I assume you were there for this day.
Wolves GenG. I was not there for this specific day.
Okay.
I did watch this game back. Yeah.
Okay. Well, either way, I was going fucking crazy during this.
Yeah.
I was going absolutely fucking mental. And again, I remember Wolves losing these 2 rounds, right? Because obviously, once it's this point and it's like they're on 11, what is the score at this point? Like 11-6? Yeah, it's 11-6 at this point. And these 2 rounds, I can still remember them. This one is like a bullshit. Like, I can't remember exactly who it was, but someone just gets like 2 like random spam kills through the smoke.
Yeah.
A retake on A, and it's like fucking hell. And this one, I'm pretty sure was on B. And again, it was another round where I was like, Wolves should have won that round, and they didn't. And now the game is fucking over. And then it wasn't over. And once Wolves got to like this point, and it was like 11-9, I really did think like, oh, this is gonna happen. Because here's the thing: look at the timeline here. This was 4 saves in a row,
dude.
They saved 4 times in a row. I mean, that is criminal. That should never happen. You should never be... And like each one individually, and it was Karen, by the way. Like sometimes it was multiple players, but Karen was involved in all 4. He saved 4 rounds in a row, Karen. And I was screaming, by the way, at round 24, like when Wolves, it looked like we were going to win. I was screaming, go and save, Karen! Go and save!
It was the same thing. We went back in the spawn, right? Just looking at each other for like 4. Dude, some of these saves were like at a 45-second, 1 minute mark.
Yeah,
we're
like
sitting there.
Minute, round over. We're not trying.
Dude, which is like, no, it's
like
even
2v4s.
worse because GenG get a timeout. They basically have a timeout 4 times, or at least 3 times in those moments. And like, when I was watching this back, I'm like, okay, I get that we're in GenG flopper mode where like they start to just, you know, save and swim. It happened on Icebox against, I forget who else they were playing, G2, I think, in the comeback. When GenG start to save when they're on double digits, buildings are collapsing. There's they're on, you know, the coastline with earthquakes. Like there's a problem happening. Yeah, I think there was another matchup where Texture only got like 1 extra kill on the half on the comeback.
Yeah,
I think that might have been against,
because with the this is so interesting, GenG's story, because again, we'll talk about Wolves in a bit, but this is one of the worst. In fact, this might be the worst half of Valorant I've ever seen from any player. Juicy's attack side on split, he kills himself with an ult. He's everything he's doing is wrong, right? He's randomly spamming in a Viper Spit on his own and dies. Literally everything he chose to do was bad. Like I have never seen, and this was so strange because obviously at this point, Wolves, they've won 3 games in a row. They've won 6 maps in a row. They've beat. Like RRQ, it's not like it's the first game of playoffs. Like, this is coming straight off a win. Like, it was so strange. I mean, look at his rank. It's tied for the 2nd lowest rating that you can have. 35 ADR as your duelist. Oh, I mean, look at this. 0-9 in first kills, first death. In one half. In one half of Valorant. The Wolves got the first kill once in this half. Once. Damn. 1 out of 12. And their duelist is 0-9. It does not get worse than that. Right? It was a horrible, horrible performance from Juicy in particular on this first half. And so then the fact, and this I think is where the Sufat Baby legend really, really grew. Some people would have missed it, but like they played at one point after this map, like Juicy fumbling all the time, like his head is in his hands, his head's down, all that. And like during the break or whatever, like during the halftime break or whatever, they showed a clip of like Sufat literally just talking to Juicy. Just being like, bro, forget about it. You got this. We're with you. It's fine. Keep like, all this kind of stuff. And then of course Wolves make this comeback. And it was it was incredible. But let's focus on the GenG side of it, because here's the thing. it wasn't just this map. This would be bad enough, right? This would be bad enough. And normally when this kind of things happen, it can affect your mental for the next map and you start off badly. That didn't happen. Because GenG came out and they started dominating on Sunset as well.
Yeah.
And then this happened. And it happened again. This time not as bad, an 8-4 rather than a 9-3. But still, considering they won this second round, and again, if you go back and watch my stream of this game, after Wolves won this eco, I said we were going to win. I said there's no way. I said that, and I kept repeating this over and over during the stream, like, they've got a glass chin. If you hit them once, they fold. They will not come back. And that is exactly what happened. So Wolves won a pistol. They lost an eco, which they did so many times during this tournament. They lost the second round a lot. And then they won the eco, though. And I knew, like, okay, the game's over. Because GenG, they don't have the mental to come back from that. They just thought they'd won the game, basically, with this round. And now they think they're going to lose. And they did. And they didn't win a single round after. And Tufat called a great half here. But also, GenG, it was terrible. But we're not ending there, Shayo. It doesn't end there. I've got more for you, you see. Because we then come to their game against G2. They're now in the lowers. Bang a game on paper. Oh, okay. G2 beat you on Lotus. Fair enough. You know, G2 are good at Lotus. Whatever. You got outplayed. Cool. You won on Haven, though. Let's go. You know, hey, you won 3 in a row to close out on Haven. That's different.
Yeah.
Icebox. Oh, no.
Dude.
Oh, no.
Dude. I just, like, I slept really late because, like, this is the one game I didn't get to watch.
9 in a row.
Brother, the way these guys were looking at the demons in their walls. Spike is planted. I think it's the second last round, number 23. Spike is planted on A, and GenG are still looking for the lurk on B, like for G2 coming in, because they were like just completely IGL diffed. They got pump faked like someone just discovered the pump fake button in like NCAA 2005 as a kid. Like G2 just spamming fakes like crazy, and GenG are totally like, what's going on? I feel like this team is so good at analyzing and it like just gaining information and parsing through it and using it as a team. And so when maps start, they have all this stuff from VOD reviews, like memorized, whatever their prep is so amazing that they dominate teams. But as the maps go on, you start to overload them with bullshit. It's like fighting Brainiac in the DC universe or something, or like an algorithm that learns with you. If you just start saying really dumb shit and doing dumb things, the algorithm absorbs that shit, and then you beat the algorithm. They're such like a chat GPT team. So like you just start prompting them with dumb shit for like 9 rounds, and like suddenly they have no idea what to do. Genuinely, if you go to, even if it is this 11, it is this round. Yeah,
it is this round. Yeah, I've paused it here just to show everyone what you're talking about, because you're absolutely right. This is unbelievable. And Leaf had been lurking on them and finding gaps and getting kills in the rounds prior to this. So you can understand being a bit wary. But this is overkill, right? So Jorgmo, he's tapping the spike right now, right? He's planting this, you know, and you see Munchkin starting to come across. You've got Killjoy Omen on B, right? He then gets revealed, so he comes off it, right? Foxy thinks about coming back. And then, okay, they're off the spike. He's going to start planting again. Foxy now goes back to B. Right, they sage wall up. Hey guys, there's a sage wall here on B. They still the alarm bot and the turret are still up, by the way, on B. Why is Karen not moving?
I'll tell you why. There's a mimicked round of this flipped on the map mirrored. I think at maybe 11-4, 11-5, where G2 wall up on B, tap the spike once, get scanned, tap it again twice, and run away. In that moment, the turret might go down for a second, or Leaf found a timing through A, and then they re-hit B again with like 10 seconds left, and now Leaf's in a super spot inside kitchen behind everyone. So like this happened twice, where they would double pump fake the bomb, rotate away, their anchor would hear it, and then walk back and let their embed do something. Dude, at 11-11, you could pause it before as well. They had a guy watching mid, a turret watching kitchen, alarm bot watching B main. They were still scared that Leaf found a way to get somewhere, or Jonah found a way to get somewhere, and they had no idea where he was, because the reason we're at 11-11 is that these pump fakes just kept putting one person from G2 in enemy lines, like they had a Yoru TP.
I have to point this out as well, though, right?
Yeah,
because this was the problem that they had against Wolves. This looks like a save, but it's not. You should not save in this spot. If your chances of winning this 3v5 are good enough when you're on max loss bonus. 3 of your players can completely fall by next round anyway. When you're on max loss bonus, saving just doesn't make nearly as much sense because you get 2,900 credits. You only get 3,000 for winning. You only get 100 more credits for winning.
Yeah.
So like if you get a couple kills, like this is the thing. If they would have gone for this and gotten more, like if they each get 1 kill, they get more. Like you'll get more money than you would. Say you get enough to buy, and they have enough to buy here, right? Yeah, Ash is gonna have to deal with it, but the fact that you actually you don't give up the round, right? You can win a 3v5. Ask Paper X, they've lost enough of them and they've won enough of them. You can win these rounds, and when it's 11-11, you gotta try. Like you gotta not just give up every round, which they did, and then obviously as we see, they end up losing the round.
So this round also is really interesting because the best thing they can do now is try to take control of the game. So they do this 3-man push mid, but G2 are so confident in even hearing it that this team is playing scared. Look at them run back, like being called back by the Queen Ant. They could have had one embed. They could have pushed in and had a flank somewhere. One deep watcher. They're back in their spawn. They just got back from the bathroom. They just got their pizza pockets from the microwave. These guys had max mid control and no one's down there. We could have called back the turret and put it somewhere else. We could have done so many dynamic things, but they're just reset into a moment that's just absolutely garbage again. That it's screwed. There was that round as well that everyone was talking about where Ash like ripped the ult early onto like A main, and everyone's like, oh, it was in response to like a paranoia. Paranoia didn't come out. I studied the frames. That was a pure like panic. Nervous moment. Yeah, it was pure panic. Also, people are like, it's for info, Shayo, info. There's a hierarchy of needs in Valorant. At 20 seconds, you don't need information.
Yeah, you don't need. They'll give you info. They'll start running at you.
Literally, they need to plant the spikes. And when you have Fury,
like when time's low, you got Silver ult. You should just be denying plant. Just deny the plant.
The Omen,
you win.
Dude, the worst thing, the Omen's looking at the angle the ult's on. Like you're trying to get a kill jail or something. Your teammates watching it, dude. I mean, that's just rookie at an international moment. That's just, I feel like texture just being broken down and completely dodged and dueled out, IGL'd as team to team. Like, bruh, cinema though from G2, what they had to pull on that, the things that Valen was calling, like I was watching, sometimes the best way to VOD reviews is to say what you would do and then look at the play and see what's different. How was he thinking of these double, triple pump fakes at the perfect times?
Yeah.
Oh my God, guy was like,
but that's the thing. It was like it's like he disrespected them almost in terms of like, and again, I feel like Valen had such a good, and I said this in my video at the time on that game, like he had such a good understanding of like they are panicking. So if I just pause here and we do nothing, they'll panic and make some stupid mistake. Either someone will walk at us or they'll just rotate for no reason. And they did. Yeah. And like they did in those, like that last round is a good example where, like you say, they push mid, they all go back. It's just Trent on his own, and he knows like, well, Trent fires some Sova util at A, and they'll just probably swarm to it because they just believe anything we give them right now. It's like that film where is it a Ricky Gervais film where like no one had the invention of lying or something, like no one had ever lied before. Like that's GenG. They're like Sova dog, they're there. Off we go.
The most innocent, genuine team ever. But it's so like insane to see like the level of dominance they have on one half. 9-3 to the point where you want to go to the kitchen. Well,
that's the thing though. Like that is the thing. This tournament was there for GenG to win. If they had a stronger mental and didn't panic, they like most people, I think, having watched their first couple of games, understood that this is a team that looks like they're ready to win an event. The map, they had a full 7 map pool of 7 like good maps. Right? Like they had no like truly terrible maps that you could like just get against them and win. So they were banning for opponents. So they were often banning whatever their opponent's best map was. Like they had like texture was on fire, right? Karen had some good moments. Like everything was coming together and it just fell apart so quick because of their mental. But like you say, it takes a good team to get into a big lead, right? Yeah. Like you can't be terrible and also get a big lead. You have to at least be good. And they were, but I mean, what a tournament. As I say, I don't think there is a more interesting 5th, 6th place team ever. Most teams are like Sentinels, where, they're pretty good, and then they eventually play teams that are better, and they lose. GenG, it was a roller coaster. What a roller coaster for GenG fans.
But when we start to talk about mental, I start to put in so many like random things that like aren't usually there and like people ignore. I'm wondering if this tournament's held in their home city, if it's held somewhere where they have that crowd coming in as well, how does it look? Specifically for GenG fans, and like this is interesting too for G2 fans. It's so weird, even though it's American soil. G2 had the least support at this tournament in all their matchups. I felt horrible as a G2 fan. G2 PRX, brother, anytime G2 went around, silence. PRX gets a kill like while saving. Wah! When G2 lost, I left. I was like so sad. Like I felt like the one white shirt in a sea of purple. It was crazy, bro. This was the only matchup where the entire crowd was on G2 side, and GenG had like no one. And for context as well, there's a fan zone where you can leave your seats and go right behind the players. I could see the players' mini map. When there was a blackout in Toronto and you couldn't see the games on the monitor, fan zone, you could literally watch the game from any POV you wanted, basically. It was like a coach POV. It was nuts. GenG's zone was empty every single time, in my opinion. There was no one there. Their side of the stage as well sometimes was the side that not many people had seats for as much as the other side of the venue. So when it came to ambiance and support, dude, they were playing a completely different game than a lot of their opponents. Because anytime they're up against Wolves, dude, the Toronto for Wolves was insane. Like the support was nuts. Against G2, the villains of the tournament, they had no support either. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy in that context for men.
See, what's interesting though is GenG, they either need the support, or I mean they won Shanghai where it was silent. They need silence. They need a library to win. That's what they need. Because obviously when they're in Shanghai and you know the GenG versus China thing going on, like that's what they need. They need just either complete silence to win. Actually, that might help them because it would help them like calm down maybe a bit.
Oh, but dude, Toronto was so opposite, and I feel like it's worse for the players. So sometimes in a stadium, it starts to go so far back that you can't see a lot of what's going on because of everything just being seated. You could see a fan like 500 meters away just eating a poutine. Like you could see everything as a player from that stage, and it's like, dude, when you have a bunch of signs and all the fans screaming and lights, and like you're up 9-3, you're up 11-4. You're up 11-8. Suddenly, the guy with a beard is like half drunk and waving a sign that says "fuck GenG," and the TMV oil up guys there like every day.
Every day.
By the way, that every fucking day.
Every day.
You're like, you know, it's gonna get to you. It's going to get to you. It's wild, man.
Yeah, but it was an interesting tournament. Let's move on and talk about G2. Who in it? You just mentioned G2, but they're quite an interesting team, I think, to talk about as well, because when you look at like their run, like you could just say like, well, they lost to the two grand finalists.
Yeah.
Like, where would you like if you were rating G2, like considering you know what your expectations were coming in to what they actually did, what would you give them out of 10?
Based on expectations, probably a 5-6, maybe 7. But man, I can't believe I even said 5 on that scale. My rules always go for the lowest numbers I said, so maybe 5.5.
See, but that's what's interesting, I think, because I think some people and it's interesting you bring up, right, that there wasn't much G2 support. I think having like obviously I didn't know that, and I find that quite surprising in a way, because when Sen went out and we were, and like on my stream we were watching this G2 Fnatic game, I was asking, you know, like, oh, NA fans who aren't fans of G2 or like Sen fans, like who are you supporting, G2 or Fnatic? And they kind of, I would say that it was probably slightly more Fnatic, which you would think, you know, I would say general esports culture is that if you're from NA, you know, you always root against the EMEA teams, and if you're from EMEA, you always root against the NA teams, right? Like that's the general culture, I would say. So I did find it quite interesting. There seems to be, and I think this is a problem for G2 as well. G2 have all of the pressure as if they're like Fnatic coming off Tokyo into champs, like of expectation, without ever having actually won anything. Like they, and I think almost, and I think that's sometimes a problem with Heretics as well, right? They themselves put that pressure on them, and they themselves, you know, say like G2, you know, when they're like beating XLG or whatever, you know, before the GenG game, they will say things like, yeah, that you know, that doesn't really matter to us. All that matters is, you know, winning a trophy, right? So
Yep.
they're already in that mindset of anything
This
but
is
winning a trophy is not good enough.
Yeah.
And I think that
And the
it's
fans
such
are in that
a,
mindset too.
it's such a, well, there's two ways of going about it, right? What would be good for the esport is if G2 really lent into that. Problem is, the players on G2 and Josh, they just aren't evil enough, I think, to actually do that. You know, because it would be great for the esport. They've already, as you say, they like people, you know, even in NA, you know, aren't their biggest fans. I mean, G2 already kind of has this brand a bit, you know, of like, they could just go all in and full go heal mode and say, we do play better Valorant than everyone. We are better than everyone. And we'll show you. The problem is, to be the best heal, though, you have to win. You can't be a heal that hasn't won. Because then you just look stupid. So this is the thing. We need G2 to win an event and them to go full heal mode and just like fully tell everyone else that they're shit and that they're never going to win anything and that we're way better than you every single time. That would be amazing for the esport. They're not going to, because I don't think the players and coaches are of that can, like, you know, you have to be a certain type of person, I think, to do that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they have it,
fun with it
but
too.
it would be fun. It would be fun, Chayo. Tell them to do it.
I will genuinely give that. I'll rock it over because I talk to Anders all the time in terms of like what G2's thoughts are. He was talking to me yesterday too about like their approach to everything in some of the GenG game too. But specifically for the team in that sense, we've seen it happen in League and we've seen it happen when they were losing as well. The issue with Valorant is that there's not enough like individual mechanical expression for a player to lose and still say I'm the best. Like caps in League, I guess I don't even know how to explain it to make it like a layman's term thing, but in League, a player can lose and still diff his lane so hard, right? Like the head-to-head matchup, to where you're like, holy fuck, yes, Fnatic lost today, but like Jog Emo played his role so fucking well, you can't say that he's not still the best duelist in the world. There's nothing that happens where G2 loses where you're like, damn, they're still the best at this. When they lose, it's like, what the fuck happened to my entire expectation of the team? Like none of the shit talk gets held. I think that's the problem. I think that's true though. They still do need to win. One of the annoying things that fans have with them, because I polled fans too, I guess, in terms of why they don't like G2, where's the hate come from? Everyone's saying they're arrogant. I never see arrogance either because they're well spoken in a sense, but it's what you're saying. They don't have the win. So when they talk about things like, yeah, focus on the trophy, guys, talk to me more about how you beat Zeli. Talk to me more about the comeback for GenG. Stop focusing on the grand finals. Like you haven't been there yet. It's like a Pokemon trainer with a level 12, like, I don't know, Pidgey talking about, yeah, man, I'm focused on the Giovanni.
You're playing Trainer Joey with his level 12 Rattata, and he's like, I'm the best in the world.
Yeah, when I get to Watson, like it's gonna be, brother, you have 3 Pokemon. Relax. Like it doesn't make any sense what you're saying right now. So I need them to be happy about the evolutions happening in their party, about getting a Master Ball, about, you know, having their first double battle and winning. Like I need to see the steps maybe, and then like people might not hate them. There's something to fall in love with. Then they can turn evil. I have the best Pokemon team in the world. No one can touch me. I think the Pokemon reigning world champion right now, Wolfie Glick, said that. Like there were 1,800 participants that joined this tournament. They all brought teams, and it wasn't enough. I'm the best here, and no one can beat me. I need that moment. You're right. I think they need that moment too. Yeah.
I also think one problem that they have is because they you know, they talk so much about like, you know, oh, all that we're really focusing on is, you know, getting to the final and winning it, and we want to win this Masters. Like, I do feel like, because I just played that clip of them losing the last round to Fnatic, and then I just saw this at the end, and I thought, G2 wouldn't do that. G2 wouldn't, like, obviously it's Boaster and he's going crazy and whatever, but like G2, like when they win a game, I don't get the sense that like they're really like in the moment happy. Fuck yeah, we won this fucking game. You know what I mean? I feel like
there was one moment though in the GenG game, it started to happen, and I asked Valen about it, and he's like, it's the first time he tried it because he was getting some types of like, you know, nervousness or like whammied up situations against XLG. But bro, they won that. I think they might have won Icebox Pistol or something, and he cranked up and almost took Trent's arm off. I'm not sure if it was Icebox or whatever map it was in the GenG game, but the emotions there from Valen were actually there. It was like celebratory, and like these guys,
But that makes sense in the GenG game because it was a massive comeback.
Yeah.
So I think that does make sense that, you know, you would feel super pumped up because, you know, you were essentially, you'd lost the game, but then all of a sudden won, right?
No,
and you feel
this was like before the game.
Oh, this is before.
Like this might have been the Lotus map even. Like this was very first round. Like just let's fucking go.
I think I actually remember what you're saying.
It might have been even in Lotus. Yeah, it might have been the very start of the day. Yeah, and like they just started on such a high note, and I felt like, holy fuck, this is G2. They're dominant. They're happy. I'm here to watch a dope game. And I was like more invested in the game after that. I think I agree with you. They need to do some of that, not silly shit, but like, you know, stand up. Like, dude, the funniest guy from the entire tournament was Lysor. Guy would just literally stand, like stick man emoji. You don't need to be complicated with it, but definitely need to see the emotion. I still think it's not so totally grand final spilled. Like they're still kind of being humble in a sense of answering questions and focus on what went right and wrong in the day. I just think people aren't used to things being so cerebral for them. Like some of the best questions that got the best reactions from G2 are like, yo, did you guys have poutine yet? Or like, you know, you played hockey, like what's your favorite Tim Hortons order? And everyone's like, oh, that's so great. Like, which to me, those questions kill me because I want to know so much more about the game, but I understand we need that side of things as well. It was definitely there, but yeah, from a just neutral POV, I think G2 needs it a lot more than every other team right now. They need to show that a bit more.
I mean, personally, I do find the hate for G2 quite strange because I think, it maybe is partly the org. I do wonder if they were still the guard, would people hate them? Because
they play the way they play. Yes,
I think you think so?
Dude, we had it. It's so topical because like this was a 40-minute chat with the coach of G2 as well, the analytical coach, and he was like talking with fans, I guess, of G2 and haters as to why this is happening, and people were just explaining. It's like for some reason G2 just come off as arrogant was one thing. The second thing was there's just not too much to support with G2. I just don't like the way they play, but they played the same as every other team. Like there's nothing to gain from it. It's just genuinely, Anders agrees with me in the same way. He doesn't mind the hate, but it's just unexplicable hate that doesn't make any sense. And like unexplainable, I hate this team. They're rat dogs. It's like when you use the word hate, you're just clumped in with the people who are like the worst of the worst with it. The racists, like the everything. Like it's so wild, man. Like so, it'd be fine if you're like, man, I just don't like G2, but like you are literally like just hating to hate, and I don't know why G2 gets it. It's wild.
I think it probably is people's impression of like they would be like the snooty rich kid, you know, who does everything proper and does everything, you know, like the book says, and they're a real pencil pusher and they're just like a bit annoying. I think that's probably what people feel, but I think that's so strange because like when G2 play well, apart from Paper Regs when they're at their best, I would say G2 playing their best is the most fun to watch, personally. Because like everything is just like perfect, right? And you're like, oh my. Maybe that's just like the like again. Maybe that's because I'm an analyst of the game, right? And so like I see all the, you know, like, oh, look at the timing of this, right? Most teams couldn't do that. Whereas for most people, it's like, yeah, they just fucking killed them. Who gives a shit? Like I can understand. Maybe to others it doesn't come across as great.
Yeah, because like what the one perspective I gained from being at the venue is that like a bunch of the riders that watch this game when they're not working is like at events like this. A majority of players and people, or just people in general, might not be able to catch the stream, but when they do they are able to catch a game in LA or something, like they're watching the game in this type of fashion, or they're watching it on a TV at home with a kid blaring and like cooking. Dude, the one thing I noticed from being in venue, you have no idea why a round is won or lost. At some point, it's just like you're screaming for any kill that happens. And if you're looking for like the mega moments of clutches, it doesn't happen too often from G2. It happens from Trent, which is why he's so loved on the team, I feel like a lot of the time. But with G2, you'll never see the cerebral way they win or lose a round. You'll just hear the Tejo nades, right? You'll never see the actual informative play they do as a layman's person, as press even, because they don't have caster audio, so they don't know the context of, even if the caster audio is also pumped in such a slurred way, where as an audience member, you can't hear it over the cheering. So you're watching G2 play this slow type of way. No one dances on stage. The interviews are cool too, very well spoken, just about the game. So as a viewer, you're like, I don't know what the fuck a default is. What are they talking about? I don't care. Like, why isn't Joggimo saying some funny shit? Why isn't what are these questions? I don't understand. For the normal person, G2 is just such an unapproachable team, and you have nothing to learn from them. For me and you, analysts, coaches, players, they're the favorite team because holy fuck, G2. How do you think of this? Then we start to glaze them so much. The guy's like, I went to the game. G2 didn't do any of this shit. They barely got any kills. They forced GenG to save 5 times. G2's not this good. They didn't even get a single ace. When did they get an ace? I feel no love for them. From that perspective, I'm like, that's where the hate comes from. It's because people can't connect to the team. They're just not set up to connect.
Yeah, I mean, I do still think it's quite interesting, but yeah, it's so. But like, even it does make me laugh because I remember last year. Last year is when the hate started. I think for G2, like really, last year is when it started, and I remember one of the main things people would say is that G2 are slow and super boring. Right, that was a big thing for them. Is that people thought this team is slow, boring. I hate watching them because they're so slow and boring. And I just think it's funny. Like, cut to Fnatic, 2025. People love Fnatic, but they're so slow.
People will sit through 1:30 of ads on your stream, right? Because they're gonna see you singing.
I mean, I've joked about I should just play ads at the start of a Fnatic round. Like, every round. That's because
Fnatic will do nothing for that time. When the round ends, they'll get a booster dance, right? After the ads are done, after the round is done.
You don't remember the 1:30 of time that they wasted for everyone.
So I guess that's there, but yeah, they should be the ones getting the hate if it comes to boredom for, watching the game, man. It's crazy.
Time wasted, Fnatic. Oh, very much up there. Let's move on though from G2. I think overall, just to put a bow on it, I think G2. I mean, I don't know if they said as much in the interviews, but like they probably should be disappointed that they didn't do better, but at the same time, like they didn't do that bad. It's a weird. They're in a weird spot again where it is. If you don't win the trophy, it's a failure, and that's always a pretty tough position to be in. Generally, I would say. Let's move on to happy stories, Shayo.
Yeah, okay.
Because we've already gone an hour 46, and we're about to talk about Wolves. Okay.
Oh shit! Let's go.
I mean, let's start off with this because I saw someone when Wolves got to the top 3. People were asking this question on Reddit. Obviously, now they did end up finishing 3rd. Of like where in terms of like overall like Cinderella runs does this rank in Valorant's history? And the weird thing for me is like people are bringing up, to me there's only 2 real comparisons. When people bring up EG, I don't think it registers the same with EG for a couple reasons. One, when people talk about EG Champs Miracle Run, that wasn't a miracle run. They were already the 2nd best team in the world, and they just then became the best team in the world. Like that, their Champs run isn't a miracle run. Their Tokyo run is the miracle run, right? That's the Cinderella story where they only snuck into the playoffs by the, a MIBR coach knife kill, and then they got to Masters. They ended up finishing 3rd in Americas. They were the 3rd seed. And then they were really good. The difference with EG, though, is that they're a North American team. So it just doesn't hit the same because, like, people knew who EG were, right? Yeah, they played much better, but you already knew who these players were. You knew what they were about. You'd seen them play. Like, most of the Western... maybe if you're a Chinese viewer watching this, maybe EG is the Cinderella run for you. Because it's like, who the fuck are these guys? Right? But... if you're someone who probably isn't, from Asia or whatever, you probably had seen EG play, possibly, or certainly if you're from America, you would have done. And it was like, yeah, okay, like this team, they got better throughout the tournament. They ended up finishing 2nd. Cool for them, right? I just don't think it hits the same, though. The other 2 that I think hit the same are Zeta in Reykjavik and Crew at 2021 Gems. Because the things that they have in similarity is that it was like, who the fuck are these players? Like, who I've never heard of these players. I've never watched this team play. How the fuck are they doing this? Right? Like, it truly is like, what the actual fuck is going on? Whereas I don't think you got that with EG. Especially because with EG as well, they came out in the tournament and they instantly were just dominating people. So it was very obvious from pretty early on in the tournament that, like, holy shit, this team's just way better than everyone. Like, most of these teams are playing. And they literally only lost to, I think they might have only lost a map to Fnatic in that tournament. So, yeah, they were just clearly very good, right? So, I don't think EG really is the same on the same level. And I would argue, personally, that this Wolves run is more impressive and is a bigger, like, for, I know obviously I'm saying that as like the Wolves guy. I think it is more impressive than Zeta and Crew's run. The reason I'm saying that is basically because back in the Crew and Zeta days, it was much easier to do because there was a lot more shit going on, right? For instance, in those early tournaments in 2021, 2022, half the time, 2 players from the other team are in isolation because they got COVID.
Yep.
You know, for instance, Zeta, they're playing against Fnatic in the first game that they won in that tournament. They're playing against Fnatic with 2 subs.
Yep.
Like, it was, I think, just and also, no one knows how to fucking play the game. Right? Like, let's be real. The level of play at that time was quite shit. Like, it just was. And I still think that those runs of Crew and Zeta, you know, they were early on. They were kind of foundational in sort of the lore of Valorant, of, you know, these teams going there. And they did have that same factor that I think you felt with Wolves. And this is the thing. This might be the last time this ever happens in Valorant. Because with the partnership system and with, like, if we assume that China is going to, you know, gradually get, you know, kind of catch up and get better and better, all of a sudden there probably won't be many teams that people are like, who the fuck are these? Because, like, for instance, if BLG went on this run that Wolves did, I don't think it would quite hit the same. Because people would have been somewhat familiar with it. Oh, I know K9. He beat FNS, right? FNS, you know, like, are you okay? You know, I know who YZ is. I've seen him. He's the judge guy, right? From Split. Like, you know, you would have seen it. It's the fact that this team, so I mean, some of them had been to internationals before. People had heard of Lysol, but like, it just all came together perfectly, right? You got a main character in Sufat Baby, who, I mean, even from, like, before the first game against Sentinels, Zelsys is fucking talking mad shit about how cool this guy is. Like, just even from, like, even before they played a game, it's like, oh, Zelsys, you know, one of the more popular characters in Valorant. He's, you know, talking up this guy from Wolves. Like, that's interesting, right? And then, obviously, it just kind of kept spiraling and spiraling. And as I say, in talking about the Valorant terms of it, you know, from, like, my perspective and whatever, for Wolves, for me, it was like, if they believed that they could have beat Sentinels, they would have done. And again, I do need to remind kind of everyone that people who hadn't watched Wolves play in China probably just think that Wolves were like this sleeping giant that was actually really good the whole time. And I cannot tell you how incorrect that is. Like, I cannot like, this team, like, in China, this team, the team that's losing 3-0 to Trace here in this and whatever, like, the team, like, this team, I would put them on par with, like EG this year from Americas, right? Like,
you could, like, you could, they're like Fnatic speed with, like, GenG's choking capabilities in China. Like,
they choked a lot of maps. They were, like, mid at best. If they played anyone who had, like, half a pulse, they'd lose probably. Like, They weren't
the best thing they had was, like, their anchoring. Their anchoring was cool half the time. They're a very defensive team, which is funny because, like, the best things about Wolves in this tournament were how they attacked, how they actually just had confidence in swinging, and the way they played in duos with each other. Never seen before in their own region ever.
Yeah, and I think it goes to show, like, how psychological, like, everything is psychological in this, right? Because again, like, we know, like, I mean, you can tell, right? This is the whole point. Who is the go-to Valorant? Who is the best player in the world right now at Valorant? It's difficult to say. You would get 10 different answers, right?
Yeah.
You know why? Because we don't have a fucking, you know, faker who just is clearly the best right now. There is no one in Valorant that is just clearly way better than everyone else. And so what that means is that all the pro teams are actually pretty close. And it just comes down to, like, things like your confidence and your mental, and you're willing to kind of, you know, put in the time and believe in each other and stuff like that. Because all of their skill levels are relatively similar.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh, true.
and that's all it is. And that's all it was for Wolves. Because as soon as Wolves, and again, Team Heretics was probably the literal, we didn't know this at the time, but it was maybe the only team that this could have happened against. Because whoever Wolves got, they probably would have thought, we can't do this. Or if they got someone like Team Liquid or maybe MIBR, they might have felt like, oh, we actually have a chance and there's pressure on them. By getting Team Heretics, there was no pressure on them, but also Team Heretics were playing shit. Right? No one expected them to win, but they were also playing against a team that wasn't playing very well. So they were able to win this game. And then, as I said, as soon as they won this game, I knew they'd beat Bilibili. And as soon as they beat Bilibili, I knew they'd beat RRQ. And this is the thing. They're winning all 2-0s. Right? They just kept winning 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. And against GenG as well, you know, they showed that they had a belief that they could come back and beat a team that has been stomping everyone. Right? I think that when they got to this point, though, and this is where I want to focus in because, you know, obviously we've gone, you know, on Plat Show, whatever, you went through the kind of the Wolves run up to that point. So let's focus on these two games, the Paper X Fnatic game. From a Wolves fan perspective, this Fnatic game is like whatever. It doesn't hurt me. Fnatic with a better team. I don't care. This Paper X game, you cannot commit. If they won Lotus, they would have won Ascent. 100%. You cannot convince me otherwise that if they would have won this map, they wouldn't have also won Ascent. I think what happened to Wolves, the worst thing that happened to Wolves is that there's a 2-day break from this game to that game. I think that really hurt Wolves because I think all of a sudden they were in the top 3 and they probably had time to digest what has actually happened, right? Rather than playing like every day or every other day, they probably had like a day to themselves to think, holy shit, we might actually win. Like, what? I'm sure it went through the player's head, like, we might actually win this. Like, we could actually, like, it's feasible that we could. And I think that pressure somewhat started to get to them. And there's a couple rounds, even on Ascent, even after they lost Lotus, I still think they had a chance on Ascent because they started pretty well. But 2 rounds happened that meant that they had no chance. And also these 2 rounds, I think, also meant they had almost no chance against Fnatic. And it was these 2. First one is this. It's 3-0 to Wolves, and they're going to end up here in a 2v1 against Devi. And Devi's going to win this with his Sheriff. Okay? They make a mistake there, and Sufat's going to lose this 1v1. And the reason that this matters so much as well, I think, is because specifically, it's that Sufat loses this. Because throughout this tournament, this guy plays 1v1s, I would argue, better than... He plays it very differently to most people, right? Sufat in these 1v1s always plays the time, right? We saw it in the Sunset game that they won where he's, you know, no HP, just like juking around the box or whatever. He's always playing time, and he was always winning these 1v1s. And I think this was the first time that I think he'd lost a winnable 1v1 or a 1v1 that he's favored in. I think this was the first time he'd lost one of those situations. And I think that got to him a bit. I think that he started, like, for the first time in this tournament, he wasn't a positive force because he had just lost a 1v1. The next one, though, is after this next round, which they then win. And I was like, oh shit, they actually won again. Like, let's go. It was this round. Because in this next round here, round number 6, they get into a great spot. They're going to end up losing a 3v1. And I think that this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because they're going to lose a 3v1 here to Patman at the end. They don't win another attacking round. They don't win a round on attack. And they end up losing this, like, what, 13-8 or something? They win like a couple rounds on defense. But they were just clearly not the same team, right? So it's a 3v3. This happens. And they go 1 by 1. And they all die. It didn't win a single round on attack from that point onwards. And I think just mentally, it boomed them. They had, like, this was a team that I think their mental got them to this point, right? They were always positive. They were pretty much always the underdog, which I think helped as well. And I think this is what broke them. They lost in OT on Lotus, which, again, a map that they very easily could have won. And then 2 almost back-to-back clutches happened of 2 rounds that they were favored and should have won, and it just broke them. And honestly, I would say it took until this Lotus map against Fnatic for them to like actually like mentally get back into a game. And it's interesting because at that point the game is pretty much over, right? You're 2-0 down. You've got nothing to lose. And I think that
I think that I'd have to disagree with. I like it all the way up until when they actually, because the biggest thing that Fnatic was talking about to Wolves is that they felt bad beating them on rounds, on split icebox as well, because every time they beat them, Wolves were laughing, smiling, and cheering them on, and like thumbs upping them and stuff. So like, I agree with you for the PRX boomage, but I think they learned that they tilted, and in the Fnatic game, no matter what happened, kept a very smiley vibe. Like, dude, they would get stood up with, and then they're like, Fnatic would win around. Alpha would stand up with Boaster. They would stand up and start smiling and clapping for them. And then Alpha literally on camera at one time was like, what? Like, what are they doing? Like, why is it? Like, the whole team like would do the Lysor stand after losing. And like, you would hear like on replays as well.
Yeah,
like,
this is a good point, because I think like at this point, it's like on split, they were like down loads, and like they won like these 2 rounds, and Lysor is like standing up. And like he's standing up or whatever. It's like, bro, you're down like you're down like 7-0, like 7-1. Like, what are you doing?
It's on the losses. Like literally, Sufat was standing and clapping for like Boaster and Chronicle, and like at one point, Alpha was like thanking them and locking back in, and then being like, I was supposed to pop off. Why did I just say thank you? Like, this feels weird. It was like it was the most awkward game to play because it didn't feel good winning rounds. It's like the verbatim what they were saying. Like they were literally cheering while losing. We've never played against a team like that was that happy losing rounds. It didn't make any sense. So like, although the grand final felt good to win, it didn't feel as good to play because these guys were like literally in high spirits the entire time. But I think for PRX, yes, and you could see it in venue as well, looking at them on stage, never standing, Sufat looking more around to his teammates to like garner support for himself more so than support them up. But I think after that PRX game, they were like, listen, guys, like we're here for this reason. Like this is our last game, like, or it could be our last game together type thing. They understood it's a BO5 against Fnatic, and like they've kind of figured out a bit of their map pool and whatnot. They were just in it for the vibes, man. And like, I think that's totally fine. I think they fixed that up. Now we just need to see the gameplay match the mental, like whenever they show up for their next tournament, personally. Yeah. But I would just have to.
But yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's a good point, and this is why you're on this show, because you get to talk to the players afterwards, and you get that insight, right? Which is interesting. Yeah. But as I said at the start, the Fnatic game to me is kind of like whatever. They got outplayed. Yeah. It doesn't matter. The Paper Rex game, I legit think they very easily could have won that game. And it's always Lotus. Weirdly, this tournament, Paper Rex and Lotus in this tournament has a very, like, they love 14, 12 Lotus. Paper Rex won 3 of those in this tournament.
Yeah.
One to win the tournament, one to survive against Liquid, and I would argue to not go to the lowers against Wolves here, because I think if they lose this round 24, I am very confident Wolves would have, because at that point, Wolves would have won 9 maps in a row. They would have just been like, we can't be beaten. We cannot lose. Like, I genuinely think they would have just had the mental, like, we can't lose. Like, we just can't.
Think they could win the whole thing?
Yeah.
I think that...
I'm not sure they would have won the whole thing, because I think the pressure of a grand final is just different. I think, a grand final is just very different. But I think they would have, at least for that second map, be like, we can't lose. Like, we just can't lose. Yeah. We've won 9 maps in a row at an international tournament. What the fuck is going on? I think they would have just thought, we are just chosen. I think sometimes it just happens, right? But I think I'm not saying they would have won the grand final, because the grand final is a different beast. But I've yapped a lot about Wolves, but
wait, there's one thing we have to mention about Wolves that matches their mental and how like confident they are. The coolest thing to look at with this team is the amount of bonuses they won and then converted into a 4th round as well. They would win pistols, win the bonus, be up 4-0, I think, for all of Swiss. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like a majority of these like matches, man. The number one thing I was wowed at is the fact that Wolves look so confident in pistol. They'd get first blooded on pistol, still end up winning on like a skirmish that happened on site, and then deny the rifle round with the bonus. It looks so strong on bonus, man. I don't know if there was prep strats or confidence from
they looked strong on some bonuses if they didn't lose the second round, because they would lose the ecos fairly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If they could win the second round, yes, their bonus would be good. but they seem to struggle so much with that second round sometimes. But yes, go on, carry on.
But yeah, that was just really cool. We didn't expect that from a team like Wolves to be that, like we expect that from teams like G2, Fnatic, like maybe even RRQ, or like some of the first seeds coming in. A team like GenG starting things off. You need power and experience to do that at a level like this. And these guys were just doing it haphazardly. Like it was wild. So to see that was really cool. I feel like that was one of the win conditions for the team as well. They would do that on both sides sometimes in some of these earlier matches, and then have like what, 8 rounds for free on a map. Like, are you kidding me? That's such a leg up. So we didn't see that weakness exploited either, because they had the comeback potential as well. So you can't even say that they're such a bonus reliant team, like, because that was a narrative some people start to go off with very early. It's like, if they don't win these rounds, it's kind of over. Denied that. They just had so many avenues of how they played the game in so many different ways. I think that was one of the most impressive parts for me, because again, in China, dude, they were the most static, like, have a one play team. We anchor on site. Lysor and YU do some crazy things. No one knew about Sufat, like, at that moment. Like, Sufat was not a player. It was not even a pawn on the board. Like, it was literally their defensive setups, and sometimes Juicy doing some cool things. YU, I felt like, kind of fell more to the shadows as the rest of the team came into the limelight. He did have some really good pillar-esque fundamental plays that kept the team alive a lot of the times, but like, the whole rest of the team showed up. And dude, for some reason, I think there's a Chinese flag in that stadium now in Toronto. These guys had more fans than Sentinels in their like home region, which is crazy to say. Like, Wolves, you talked about Cinderella run. I didn't get to respond to that either. Cinderella was a who? Cinderella was a 2 followers on Twitter person going to the fucking influencer venue, right? Like, people are comparing this run all the time. You didn't mention it, to T1. But the T1 is the most established org in the fucking history of esports.
I didn't even bring up T1 because I just think that's just, T1 was not a Cinderella run. They were just a team that sneaked into the fucking Masters, built a fucking super team, and then just fucking turned up for 2 weeks and then just got shit again. Like, that's sort of, they aren't a Cinderella run. They got fucking Buzz, Stacks, and fucking Meteor on their team. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I want to denounce the people saying that stuff. And then for Wolves, yes, Cinderella, the first half of the movie is like her learning and practicing how to dance for the ball. Her like learning about clothes and like being clean because she's been under a staircase her whole life, Harry Potter style. Like, we saw that in the early games for Wolves. They were learning how to do this stuff and getting better and better. So in terms of Cinderella run, like, I don't think we even saw that from Zeta in the past. Those guys were just firing all cylinders, had their style of play throughout their tournaments, even especially Crew in the past. It's not like they were getting better and learning more about themselves as the tournament went on.
Yeah.
For Cinderella, this story and that actual term, Wolves personifies that. Genuinely don't think we see it again, because now people are going to be like, gotta tune into China more, like, who's Wolves facing, like they'll be more informed on it and whatnot. And there's a lot of superstars in that region.
It genuinely might be I suppose it could happen with some like truly unexpected team, like a fucking, I don't know, a Furia makes an international and goes on a deep run. Like, it still could happen to certain teams, but it does feel like a lot less likely, because, as I say, like, as we go forward into the future, each of the regions still seems, it's going to just get more balanced, and eventually you're just going to be very familiar with most of the teams and players who are going, so there just won't be there won't be a chance for it.
Runs.
One thing I want to point out though, Shio, which was what you were talking about as well, because you mentioned there that YU kind of went into background. I think people will be shocked to learn, like, if you go on the China stage 1 and go on the stats and go on Wolves, YU is the highest rated player. Lysor is second.
Yep.
Then Juicy, who's below 1. Spring was a 0.96 in China, stage 1. Like, this, I think, would absolutely shock everyone. Because people have come out of this tournament, and I'm seeing, the discussion. It's like, wow, Spring, what a player. Like, oh, he's an amazing player. And I was like, bro, you weren't watching him fucking throw neon stunts at himself on Haven in stage 1. Like, you clearly weren't watching that. Because in China, I was thinking he's kind of shit. But in this tournament, he's the best fucking player of the tournament.
Dude, his performance, like, insanity. And it started, I feel like, on that Astra on Split in one of his first games, disrespecting Astra walls, playing around smokes, 3K every 2 rounds. I'm like, someone check on stage, is that Spring playing, or like Bang, or someone else was like just crazy disrespectful on smokes. Like, what is going on? And then he kept it up every single game. He gave the chance for one of his teammates to be the second guy. And that's huge. Like to have Spring be the person that's like your consistent pillar makes it so that if Juicy's popping off, like you now have a two-man system. If Sufat's having a good day, you have a two-man system. And then YU, although he was in the shadows, again, every kill he had was an impact frag. I don't think YU had anything where he was farming or stats playing or even trading. He was always like either on alert, which worked really well, or holding a flank that just was crucial for the team to get a kill with. It's just, yeah, not the same Wolves, a different team. Like that was the most surprising thing for me. I hoped you were okay with it too, because it's like we weren't watching the same China team that we kind of fell in love with in the style they played. It was very different at Masters.
My worry now, though, is that they will just return to being like middle of the pack pumpkins. My hope is that, like, you would hope that they've gained the experience and probably the confidence to know, like, holy shit, we can actually like go toe to toe with like the best teams in the world. And I'm hoping that
Yeah.
confidence just kind of, you know, carries them through, you know, getting like, because it's not guaranteed that they will get to champs, right? Because as I said, like their kickoff and stage 1 were like mediocre, so they're actually behind XLG on points overall. So yeah, I'm hoping that maybe they can, you know, do something there, but we shall see.
Confidence doesn't mean much or as much online. That's the issue. I always say with EDG too, I don't think EDG are like the best Chinese team. They're one of the best international teams. I would call them like an international team more so than even a Chinese team, which like tilts people for some reason. But I feel like Wolves might fall under that category if they need and operate through confidence. Because like online, man, live source standing up and looking at a wall, to be honest. Like maybe they take the players and put their pictures above their monitors. So every time they stand up, they like get to see their opponents and like know who they're fighting. I don't know. There's some psychological stuff that they go through, but yeah.
Let's move on. Let's move to the grand final.
Yes.
And Fnatic. And talk me through. We're just gonna play like, you know, the last, you know, couple of rounds here.
Yeah.
Talk me through. Let's just start with Fnatic before we get to Paper X. What are your overall thoughts and feelings for Fnatic here? Because I have some thoughts here about Fnatic and like the difference of like, you know, the Fnatic that won tournaments and this version. But you go first. Tell me what you think of Fnatic.
Yeah, on narrative, I feel like just it's unfortunate that they didn't have as much going on for them in this tournament. I feel like they were fourth seeded on a bunch of people's like fantasies of how this entire tournament played out. And it wasn't akin to their actual level of gameplay. It's just because people were invested in the Cinderella run. People wanted a dominant G2 and expected it. And people wanted the PRX curse to break. I feel like because of that, they didn't have as many expectations on themselves either coming into this tournament. And that was really well for them in the way they played. And then again, the way they played, a lot of people, and especially at press, they kind of maybe agreed to it too, are saying that this is the best roster they've had, even more so than when Dirk was playing on the roster and whatnot. Like this is the most powerful roster they have so far. They look the best they've looked ever in terms of power. If you're disagreeing with that, you can respond. I'm just talking
I think that honestly that is the difference. I think that that's why they didn't win. I think the difference is that, and we saw it in this game of Lotus, right? Chronicle and Althea would dragging Fnatic to saying, I'm not fucking losing this game. Like the two of them were like, fuck it. We ain't losing. I ain't losing this game like this. Like they fucking dragged them back. In and Alpha especially, right? Alpha, again, a player who had a pretty shit by his standard stage 1. Like he was not like the best player, even on Fnatic in stage, you know, Kayak was dominating all the headlines in stage 1, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that the difference is that, and Kayak, I think well, for both Kayak and Crashes, I think it's completely understandable, right? Crashes, he's still new to the team, right? He's still, and he's like they're both performing their role pretty well. But the difference with Fnatic, who won Lock-In and won Tokyo, is that when you've got 4 players on the team who will just take turns of just absolutely carrying the fuck out of the game, it's almost, you can't beat that. You cannot beat that team. Like without playing exceptionally well, you ain't gonna beat that. And I feel like what we got here was a good example of a team that, like with Crashies and Kayak, Kayak had some moments in this tournament, but I don't, you know, he didn't pop off exceptionally a lot of the time. You know, I feel like he was okay a lot of the time, but not like amazing. The thing is, I think for Fnatic is, yeah, I always go back to like when they were winning in 2023, you know, it would often cut to Mini being like, what the fuck are we doing? Right? But you get away with it because, oh, Leo and Chronicle won a 2v4. Oh, Durka and Alpha won a 2v5. Like they would just get away with having shit rounds. Because, of course, you're not going to play amazing rounds. And that's the thing. Fnatic, you know, like, for instance, they're Ascent at this tournament, right? They're going to have maps, potentially, or, you know, certain moments where they are playing really good, right? Boaster has a really good idea. They've got a good game plan, and they're going to win, right? But like, it's fucking anyone who's played Valorant, you know, even in their ranked games, like, you know this. Like, you can have all the plans in the fucking world that you want. This game, a lot of different shit can happen. Like, and you got to be able to get yourself out of these situations. And I just feel like they didn't. They missed that. You know, they missed. Like, oh, Durka took over this round. Oh, Leo took over this round. Like, they just missed that a little bit, especially in a close game like this. Like, again, if you put the 2023 Fnatic roster in this game when it's this close, I think they win this game. Assuming, you know, that Leo is feeling good and, like, you know, is down form and Durka is on, like, form. Like, I think that they would have won this game, because I think that when you've got 4 players doing that, especially in close games like this, you can't beat that. And because, like, Paper X, they didn't come out with game plans, Paper X, that I think were unbeatable, right? That's how you beat 2023 Fnatic. You just had to have, like, an unbeatable game plan that they weren't ready for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Paper X did that, but I just think that Fnatic, like, this is a perfect example, right? This is a 4v2, and Paper X are going to be the team that makes the play.
Yeah, this was like really frustrating as well, is because like, and it's in agreement with what you're saying. Like, if you don't have that star power, you need to have something that's so fluid and locked down with all 4 players carrying even weight, at least, that like stuff like that can happen. But that was like the second 2v4 of that map, and like there's so many times that PRX were down. Like, Fnatic's overall game plan was working, but you're right, there wasn't a section of that team that could take over and really bury the round. They had to still wait for PRX to make the next move. They give these guys a chance to make the move with even 2 people alive. Also, the difference between GenG and Paper X in that moment is that Paper X will try for that round and keep it rolling. And guaranteed it's overtime. You have to. Like, it's just, there's nothing in Fnatic that can both start and finish the round. Like, look at a player like Crashies, right? The way we started off in Split, really good at pumping up the team, really good at getting that 2K and whatnot. But as the rounds progress, like, will slow down and not be as a front runner or someone in the spotlight comparatively to being a really good support player for someone like Kayak. Issue for Kayak is first event, might not start with momentum, not going to have enough firepower to really have the reads, the experience at this level in a finals like this to even have the confidence to take over the game. And we kind of saw that too, right? That's why Chronicle really had to step up when Chronicle wasn't doing that much in a lot of the previous rounds. Like, Kayak was still comfortable in some of those games being the front runner. I think Alpha here is the biggest thing, as you were saying, the biggest like offset from stage 1, where every game he was really popping off. And they were putting him in a position to do that as well. That was a really smart thing about the Fnatic coaching staff, at least, to recognize that Alpha's having a good time at this tournament specifically. Let's put him on these carry roles. Let's see what he can do. We just needed a response from some of the support staff or the support players from Fnatic. And I feel like Crashies had a lot to do in setting up and filling the gap for some of the inexperience from Kayak, to where he couldn't step up like Durka or Leo or the players from before. So it's so hard to do all those jobs. Specifically as well, I feel like a lot of people ignore it, but we have to say it because we did for NRG as well. We did for 100 Thieves. Boaster needed to level up. Boaster needed to be there for the team in at least a gunplay standard. To, if you don't have Leo and Durka, if you don't have, you know, the Fantastic Four on your team, like, you have to kind of become Dr. Doom, man. Like, you have to do it all. You literally have to rip the spine from Thanos, take control of the fucking game, and pop off. And you had the potential to do it. We saw it in stage 1, glimpses of that. Boaster being able to call perfectly and frag against a scary team in clutch situations, and then keep his head cool, make more creative plays, still anti-strat, still mid-round. I think Boaster has some of the best mid-rounding I've ever seen. And the fact that this team consistently planted at a sub 10-second mark and still felt in control of the game. It wasn't a furious up 10-second plan. It wasn't a Leviathan style of approach to the game where, holy fuck, I'm a waiter with a house of cards of glasses and it's falling everywhere as I deliver it to the table. These guys were like cooking this shit medium rare steak to the point of perfect temperature and delivering it to me as I was the most salviated at my table, bro. It was so much fun to watch from a Valorant perspective. It's just at that final, dude, Boaster needed to pop off. And I feel like, again, if people watch that press conference, I've never seen a player break down like that, even after a loss. He felt some of the onus and the responsibility of being the difference in Fnatic was on him. I understand he knows the game at that level, at what kind of makes the difference. And hard to ask him questions, hard to, go for some of the more hard-hitting, hey, man, like, what are we looking at today? Because the first one that was asked, he kind of just admitted that, man, I think I let my team down. I feel like if I played better, we would have won. I feel like this loss is my fault. And I don't want to fully agree with that, but I feel like in the terms that you're putting down and the way that Fnatic has been dominant in the past, they needed one extra player. And whether that's Crashies, Boaster, or Kayak, one of them needed to level up. And I know we look at Kayak a lot and we give him the rookie excuse. Look at Crashies, give him the new player excuse and the fact that he has to be a support player in the system. Boaster is a yearly experienced veteran who at this point has like one, like not issue, I guess, but problem to work on. And it needed to be fixed for this event. And it wasn't in the finals. And so that's something we can point out. Not trying to hate. I'm just saying that that's the thing I feel like it's also a separating factor. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think that's somewhat true because, like, again, I just think if you're gonna win an international tournament, you're probably gonna need at least like 3 players playing really well, and or 4 players playing really well, or like someone like maybe like 2 players going absolutely white hot, like best player ever, like type thing. Like you're gonna need like just a certain level. And I think you're right that the problem for Fnatic here is, as we're saying, like Alpha and Chronicle were playing at a really good level. Crashies and Kayak were playing at an okay level. They were both doing okay. And again, maybe when we go to champs, right, and the crowd will probably be with Fnatic pretty heavy, and Kayak has now experienced this, and maybe could become like a player who's getting like MVP level like stats, which he did for like a game or two, but like not just like it just wasn't there all the time. And I don't think it was really there during that grand final either. I think he just was kind of like a passenger in the grand final. Like he was okay, but it wasn't like, you never felt like, oh, Kayak is taking this game over now, a couple rounds in a row. And yeah, you're right. Like we've just entered the phase of Valorant. Like you say, when Boaster is with the Fab Four and, can just like he doesn't need to do any, like, he can just IGL the game and it doesn't matter that much, like what stats he gets, because the other 4 will just carry the slack, right? Like,
yeah,
like they just, that was the old Fnatic. It just happened like that, right? Whereas now,
it's different.
You're not, you're not going to get that. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
Crashies is not going to be Leo, right? Like at this event, we could run this event 100 times. There's probably no one where Crashies is like in the top 3 rated players, right?
Yeah.
He's always going to be solid. Like in 95 of those, he will be a good player for you.
Yeah.
Right? And he will be good. But he's not going to, like, but when Leo was playing in these tournaments, he would be, it's a bit unfair to compare Crashies to Leo, because Leo at that time was clearly the best player in the world. So obviously that's a bit unfair. But like we're saying, like, he's not going to be top, like carrying, like, wow, what a player, stats wise at least, because that's just not how he kind of plays. That's not even how he plays the game. He just put himself in those positions to do that, because that's just not his game, and that's fine. But as you say, if that's going to be the case, you also, and Boaster even said this himself, like I think after they beat Sentinels, I think he said, like, he was asked like, what do you need to do to win this tournament for Fnatic? And he was like, I've got to make sure that I'm getting like a minimum like level of playing to make to help us out, right? Like I have to be at a certain level. And I think you could argue that in that grand final, he I'm sure himself, as you say, would probably say he was below that. And unfortunately, this version of Fnatic right now, I just don't think, again, has the enough to pass through that. Because again, you're playing, for instance, a team like Paper Rex.
Yeah.
They don't have any passengers.
No, not at all, man.
They got
Like
no
that-
passengers,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's hard.
It is. Take these names, right? Rienz, Jemkin, Rarga, and Foxy9. Who do you think is rated the least there out of those 4 names?
At this
Just a
tournament,
random at this tournament, yes.
Oh man, that's a tough. I'm gonna say Raga because well, Heretics were pretty bad too, but I'm gonna say Raga.
All right, so Foxy9 was 0.88, right? Then it was Rarga at 0.86, Jemkin 0.85, and Rienz 0.85. The point of this is that Boaster was 0.84 below Rienz. So like that's an issue. And the majority of it comes from because the rest of his stats look really good across the line. ACS, everything. It's actually I was looking at Rienz's stats, never mind. It's the KDA at the end of the day that is low. It's 0.76, quite lower than a lot of other people. And he's kind of surrounded by some of these players that were grouped in Swiss. Like you're talking about the finals and the way things went. Boaster and Fnatic, I think, would have not even been knocked down to lowers. It was he was playing at a higher than minimum level, right? That's the whole thing. These guys would have been maybe even dominant and big chilling the whole way through. But as a result of this, Fnatic's like ceiling can only get so high. That's the only issue because of like just this little bit of an anchor weight that's kind of pulling them down. But the cool thing is, even if Boaster doesn't improve and he stays at this level, the calling is crazy. Kayak can only get better, and Crashies gets closer to Leo, right? So that's a possibility. But I think the biggest jump this team can get is if Boaster gets to that point, because there are situations when it comes to trades, when it comes to 1v2 clutches, where like Boaster's just not, he has the opportunities, but he's just not in the business. There's also positional things, right? Because you can only kind of see this from an eye test in the game. Boaster will not put himself in a position to get those extra kills or be in a spot to really fight, because he knows he needs to just be calling, or it's an automatic thing when you're not really feeling hot to play and take fights that you might be playing a step too far back. And then now you're in an even worse spot to fight in general. So it's like if you're already playing in that type of not scared, but like unconfident fashion by default, you're not putting yourself in those right spots. The stat will never show you that Boaster's playing that way. But if you go back to some of these maps, like he's just not in a position to trade his teammates. He's not in a position to really get that +1 or be in a spot to get a 2x play, because he knows he might not be able to do it because he's calling for the rest of his team. Dude, Forsaken MVP, by the way, played a lot of Omen, played a lot of controller. Look at some of the best players otherwise that were highly rated as well. Spring, like second highly, like I know he doesn't have the IGL, but the positions he's putting himself in are just working so well for him and his team. If Boaster played the way Spring played and was able to call, I know I'm like just literally being
let's just create like the best player of all time. I do think that will never happen, because I think very specifically of how Boaster IGLs the team. I think Boaster IGLs the team much more micromanagey than a lot of other IGLs, right? I think a lot of other teams, they'll have, like an initial call. Your IGL will make the initial call before the barriers, and then different voices will, chime in, and you'll come up with a round, mid-round, kind of more collaboratively, potentially. Whereas, like, I feel like Boaster is almost more playing like a coach is in the game, right? Like he's being like, you do this, you put this util here, I'll do this, then we'll sweep around here and we'll wait 10 seconds again. We'll wait until we see red on the clock and then we'll go.
Yeah. Dude, it's so weird. I like 100% resonate with this because a rematch came out, by the way, random segue. And like I was playing with a 5-stack as striker because like man can score goals. So difficult. We're being hard stuck 24/7. I swapped to goalie, and yes, my scoreboard says like 0 to 1,000 points. I can see the whole field now. And this thing got some mileage on it, man. I was calming like prime. I don't know who the fuck a coach is in football. Give me a good coach.
Pep Guardiola.
That guy. I was prime
Jose
fucking
Mourinho.
Guardiola, bro. Yeah, fucking Jose Mourinho, bro. Dude, the guy with the veneers. I don't know what his name is.
Jurgen Klopp?
Like, yeah, that guy, 100%. I was just like, cut left. All right, guys, big fucking chill. Call him like default because like I only know FPS
default. Default, guys, come on.
We're playing.
You know our A default.
Like it was crazy, bro. But yeah, I was in the Boaster position and we started to win, even though that like my strong suit is striking, and then my own score goes down. So I get where he has to come from. I get the sacrifice needed for the team, but now like goalie's got to shoot, bro.
Shayo, we need to stop. We need to stop because we need to talk about Paper Rex, and it's going to be the longest podcast of all time. Okay,
that's true. Okay, let's go.
Paper Rex. They won the event.
God tier.
I mean, so Sideshow came up with this. Let me say it like this. Sideshow came up with this narrative during the Pletcher episode. That at the time I was like, oh, that's actually, I agree with that, right? Which is that this is the wrong time for Paper X to win. The Paper X's story will be more interesting if they lose. Like that would be a better long-term story for Valorant overall in terms of the narrative. However, so I made a video today. Okay, as we're recording this. Well, I made it yesterday, but it's releasing today about Paper X winning this event.
Yep.
And I went back for that video. I went back to the first video I ever made about Paper X. Right? I've made 920 videos since, not counting things like Cosmic Divide. I've made 920 videos since. And I got emotional in that video. I couldn't not get emotional because I was just thinking about the journey. I mean, it made me think about obviously my journey of like, fucking hell, 920 videos. Fuck me. Like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it made me get emotional about like looking at me analyzing Paper X and now the fact that they've won and like how long a journey it has been, you know, how long it actually has been for them to get to this point. And I understand what Sideshow was saying because I think it makes sense. Long term, like the story of Valorant as a whole, long term, it would have been maybe interesting to see, you know, Paper X, you know, still struggle. And in reality, you know, it would have been interesting for Paper X, you know, for instance, if they won when it was at APAC, right? Like if there was a tournament in like, you know, Singapore or something, you know, that would have been the time for them to you know, lift a trophy because it would have, you know, obviously been at home and stuff like that. But having now, you know, come a couple days away from it, I'm just, it feels right. It feels right.
Yeah.
I think you could argue, and I'm interested to see what you say about this. Are Paper X, because if you look at the viewing figures of this tournament, are Paper X, are they the face of Valorant? More than like Sentinels or Fnatic? Is this the true face of Valorant? Paper X.
Yes. I would say yes. I've never seen a sea of purple internationally. Like, you know, or a sea that's not red at this event internationally. I understand Tens, big guy, Tariq, big guy, but now they've kind of like come into spaces and faces of their own, kind of outside the org, which kind of takes away from Sen in general. Because the battle, in my opinion, is Sen versus Paper X now for this game. People are like in love with the coach of this team. Some of the players might not be as spoken like something, but you know, Forsaken's influence when it comes to his online persona is also insane. The way this game is played, just the fandom when it comes to the merchandise that's bought, especially after this moment now, they have the one up. They have the leg up. They're the current holding winners. They have to, and they are, I feel like, the face of this game. I think Sen will always be very important, and like it's always in the conversation. Like, let's just wait and see what happens next. We can't ignore that Tariq is kind of on the org and like is kind of the face of Valorant in general right now. But in terms of a team front facing, it has to be Paper X. And the point that Sideshow was making, why I disagree with it at first, is also because winning is not everything in this game. It never has been in many games in existence. The coolest part about a game is the post game, in my opinion. And I've enjoyed it the most, as much even as the story sometimes. The story for these guys, I agree, long-winded. And yes, people just want to just take it up a little bit away to, you know, maybe see that final last Champion League win. But like, winning in Masters is totally fine. Now we get to see them maybe try to dominate on top of that win. We can still see the APAC trophy risen by Paper X, and I feel like that'd be 20 times better after winning Masters. We can see them win champions, and I think that's fucking amazing and even better after winning a Masters. Like, their story now doesn't stop. The really cool question I got to ask Alex is, listen, man, your purpose for playing this game for the last few years is redemption. It's hunger after getting second so many times. You guys have been hungry for this for so long. Where's your hunger going to come from? What is your purpose? And then take a step back for a second, because like it didn't even process to them that, holy shit, our story, our purpose for playing now is over. Like, what's the difference? And so he's talking about how, yeah, we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board, kind of figure stuff out into like why we're doing what we're doing, but we clearly want to still win. The whole idea for this, the reason we play is, yes, to get first, but to raise trophies. And we want to raise more trophies, so we're going to do that. I'm like, that's sick. But it's cool that they have to go back and think now, because you just gave the starving man food for the first time in his life. You know, it's crazy. They just tasted water. African tribe discovers Sprite. I'm not sure if you've seen that video, but like, you know, holy shit, what the fuck is this? What do we do now? Like, it's a whole thing. And I'm going to be excited to see them figure it out. And personally, I think it'll be a better story than the 920 videos long journey we've seen so far for this team. I can't wait to see, dude, the talks of like, we're going to go so fast from like, are they the face? Like, are they the best team in history? Is Paper X like the GOATs? Are they better than Prime Fnatic? Like the comparisons for this team are going to be crazy as to what people were talking from month to month. And that potential, it excites me very much so.
What I think about Paper X and the reason that they are so... I agree. I think they are the face of Valorant more than Sen.
Yeah.
Because I think that they have a whole culture that is completely unique to them, right? What style of Valorant do Sentinels play? Normal? Normal? Standard?
Yeah.
You know, like they embody this game because, and it's good that they've won a tournament now, because what's interesting about this is as well, go back through, I mean, I'm sure you can definitely hear Sideshow saying this throughout 2024, you know, and other people, I might have said it myself at some point, I can't remember, but a lot of people will have said, especially I remember this last year when Paper X weren't doing as well, like, well, now the game is too good, people are too good at the game to where their style doesn't work, right? Their style, they can never win a trophy now because their style, you know, people are too good. And I think that that's what's so great about Valorant. And one of the things that has annoyed me most about the history of professional esports in Valorant is that so many teams try to play CS.
Yeah.
There are so many teams throughout history that have basically gone, I've come from CS. This game kind of looks like CS. So let's just play what worked in CS. And we'll just do that. And so many teams, I think, have been in that mindset. And from the very first time that you watch Paper X play, you realize that it's a different game. You realize this is not the same game. This is not CS. This is not insert any other game here. This is something that I've never seen before, right? And still to this day, there are some other APAC teams that are kind of crazy, but none of them are Paper X crazy. None of them, no one really enters the same stratosphere. Every team who goes to an international always say they want to play Paper X if they're not already an APAC team. Because you don't play anyone else ever like them. And everyone says that it's, you know, they want to play Paper X because it's more fun than playing against anyone else. Because you'll never play again against anyone who is even the remotely the same. Even like the Chinese teams that, you know, like old EDG, right? Who used to be like just crazy aggro and just, you know, do random stuff, kind of like Paper X, but it didn't have the thought that Paper X did. Like Paper X they do crazy stuff, but there's also like really cool strat behind it. Right? When at least when they're playing well. Often that breaks down when they play shit. When they play shit, that often goes and they do turn into old EDG and just do random stuff. But I just think it's so... It like this needed to happen for this game. Like if Paper X needed to win a trophy. Because like, from one side there is the sense of like, it would have been interesting. The longer that it went on and the more grand finals that they lose, you know, it might have been interesting to be like, this has to be the time, you know, if we're on like Paper X grand final number 8 and we're like, they've got to win this one, right guys? Right guys? But just from like the whole sense of the game, like they do embody like, and also they also embody something that's quite important as well, which is that this is a global game. That this isn't just because like you could say like, oh well, GenG they won from Asia and EDG they won from Asia, but like again that's a bit different because like when they're Korean and Chinese and you've got such like a history of esports in those regions already, like it is a bit different, right? To like Paper X, do they even have another team? Like do they have a team in another esport? I don't know. They're definitely all in on Valorant. I know that, and you know, like you can't. I remember when the Pacific Partnership teams were announced and people were like, oh, thank God Paper X made it in. Because, you know, they were like, well, they might not, right? Because they're a tiny little org that isn't really doing anything else. But they are that thank fuck Riot decided to put them in, because holy shit, imagine if they hadn't and that team split up. How different of a game it would be, because they put in some other like random big org. It would have been it would have been terrible, right, for the game. So thank God they did. But I just think that they are the face of Valorant, and not only because they have their own style, but also, like you say, so much of Sen is wrapped up in Taric and Tens. Right? Yeah. Like genuinely, like Sentinels, I think, because Tens isn't playing on that team, like a lot of people just don't care as much. Like it is the case. Yeah, they still have a lot of fans, but they just don't care as much. This Paper X team, and like Mindfreak is still there. Even if he's not playing, he is still with the team. I mean, apart from Benkai, everyone else is there. Like the coach, all of the players, they're all still there. Like that's crazy to think about in reality. That is absolutely insane that they're all still there.
Which is why I'm on the fence or like on the side of the fence, which is like they should get that win now, because like the later this gets with that same roster too, like the volatility of things, people are asking for like too much suffering first of all, and B, like a little bit of like an unrealistic like expectation for like the same players to be. Stick together, be that good for that long, especially with a team that has so many emotions within it as well, like that respect each other to be able to part ways is also a quality that not many people have, right? Like, so at this point, at this Masters too, where like so many new stories are being formed as well, so many other teams didn't make it, PRX did. Think about it too, a Masters meta change. I'm not sure if we've had this before, where like we're coming into like a brand new complete meta. You would know better than me in the previous Masters. But it just seems like a concoction, a stew, where Paper X are the protein. They're like the main portion of it that you expect to be the most tasteful. Like, holy crap, no one knows what to do. What's Paper X doing? Like, they're gonna probably do the sickest thing, and they did. They won the trophy, so it makes the most sense. Yeah, this is. I don't know what moment could be better. Like champs, if they didn't win this and won champs, I think it'd be worse. I genuinely think it'd be worse. That's my take. I'm not sure if you agree with that, but
I don't agree. If they would have lost this and then won champs, I think.
And then won champs, you think that would have been better?
If they lost this and then won champs, I think that would have been even better. Yeah, because I think.
But don't you think that like a lot of those champs teams then would have to just do really dumb shit in losing? Like you think Paper X would be
I think it's less. Had they lost this, I don't think their chance of winning champs would be very good.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't have a great chance. Like you say, like it was almost a perfect storm. A new like Sunset coming back in for them, new meta, like it did suit them. Everything was kind of suited towards, they weren't a team that played a lot of Teo versus a lot of the other teams. Like
and no one's taking this win away from them. That's the best part. No one's saying anything fraudulent about like the way they won.
Oh no, they're just they were the best team. But I fucking hate when anyone says that about any tournament. I think so annoying, what the fuck are you on about? The only one you could maybe argue is because it was single elim and lock-in, and that's quite strange versus all the others. But everything else is like, but then who the fuck thinks that Fnatic weren't the best team? You'd have to be pretty fucking dumb to think that you didn't deserve that. It was just lucky. Like, no, I think Fnatic proved they were the best team. So yeah, I'm just happy. I think this was one of the best tournaments that we've had in Valorant, and I think this was one of the best podcasts ever made. Not just about Valorant, just all time. Cosmic Divide. They'll talk about Cosmic Divide episode 52 for years to come. For years to come.
You want to end on a little Paper X mini trivia? I know the episode's super long. Quick question. What do you think? It's a little bit of a trick question-ish. What do you think of the other two esports they're involved in? They have 3 teams in total. One of them's PRX Valorant. I don't know why I led with PRX, but what are the other 2 PRX teams? Hint. I'll give you a little bit of a hint. One of the rosters is just 1 player. They only have 1 player signed for this esport. So that gives you a hint of what it could be. The other one is a 6-man roster. I believe one person is either a coach or a sub, but it's a 5-player game. I know that for sure.
I mean, they're not mobile games.
They both could be considered mobile games. God. I'll let you ask as many questions as you want. I'm like, you can be like the genie guy.
I'm terrible with games. I literally.
But it's also not a mobile game. Okay, one's a
FIFA.
MOBA. No, not FIFA.
One's a MOBA.
One's a MOBA. The 5-player team or the 6-man roster is on a MOBA.
Is Dota 5 players?
It's not Dota. It's not League of Legends. Your MOBA knowledge is being tested.
Smite? I mean, how many?
No. Okay, it's Pokemon Unite. They have a Pokemon Unite roster.
I was never going to get that.
Which is crazy. And do you know the last one is also a Riot game?
It's also a Riot game.
And they only have one player signed.
What other Riot games are there? The fighting game isn't out yet, is it?
Nope. But what other Riot game is only played with one player?
TFT.
Is it in your room? TFT. You
TFT.
got it.
I've got it.
TMV guesses TFT. Let's go. Yeah, that's Paper X.
I was thinking more esports first. TFT doesn't come to mind when I think esports personally, but maybe maybe that's just me. Okay, that's gonna be it. Cosmic Divide, episode 52. 53? 52? 52. Thank you, Shio, for being here. Talking Masters Toronto. Paper X won. It was a good tournament. As I say, China Stage 2 is starting in like a week and a bit. And then I think the other Stage 2s start like mid-July. So should be plenty going on. I'm sure, Shio, you'll be back and co-streaming things again, you know, doing stuff.
Yes. Doing all co-streams. I think APAC as well, which should be fun because I didn't have the perms for that before, but I think I might have earned the perms this time. I'll hit up the region of APAC. But yeah, co-streams, YouTube content. I'm not on a Go train every day, so it'll be sick.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm sure I'll talk to you during some of those co-streams. We can watch Wolves, you know, win a ton of games or lose and be terrible. Sir. Should be fun either way, though. Thank you for joining me, and have a nice day, everyone.